sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest tonight, you've seen her here before, is Tara Reade. She's an author, a former Senate aide, former RT contributor, and she's the host of Politics of Survival. Welcome back, Tara.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I am continuing contributor to RT proudly. Yes. So I continue to contribute geopolitical analysis. So I love that. And it's wonderful to be back.
Awesome time. So before we get into what is happening right now, because for those who may not be aware, you were actually living in Russia for quite some time. And I know you went there originally to promote your book. Can we go through the steps of you going to Russia and why you could not come back to the United States for such a long time?
Sure. In May of last year, a year ago, last May, I was promoting my book, as you said, which has been translated into Russian. It's now out, and also there were other languages that may have been interested, which I'm still pursuing. So it was coming out in Russian. I wanted to see Moscow. I wanted to see Russia for myself because of all the press that Russia gets. I wanted to really understand it. So, I was just going on a sightseeing thing for like a week, and I was doing some press for the book and then meeting with the translator. And then I was given information that if I tried to come back, there would be a problem, that I could be arrested. And then I started getting a lot of death threats, like right before I left, and had posted about that. And so I contacted some former intelligence, and then also Matt Gaetz' office had been talking to me because I was going to be testifying against Biden on the possibly on the whistleblower committee. So we had something that we were going to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and to bring some light into the corruption and cover-ups by Joe Biden and his administration. And then, I contacted his office and I told him what was going on, and he wasn't the only person. Like, there were several people, including my attorneys, that said, it's not looking good for you to come back. You could be arrested under this regime. So I applied for political asylum in Moscow, Russia, and it's very difficult to get. But they investigated the case and felt that I met the standard, and I needed protection for my physical safety. And so I had that, and I stayed in Russia and worked. I still work for RT. I've been working for them. And luckily they gave me more work and then I was able to, live in Moscow, and it's a very affordable place to live. It's quite a sticker shock. So we can get into that later, but so then I stayed, and then, as time progressed, my attorney they filed a suit against the DOJ, and they filed a complaint with the Attorney General about my violation of human rights and with the UN. And so we haven't gotten responses yet. However, the federal case was accepted and it has started. And the federal case, basically, we're talking about how the DOJ and FBI illegally surveilled me. In 2019, when I first came forward, apparently they had a FISA hearing. And what a FISA hearing does is it allows them to do warrantless searches of U.S. citizens' communications. And in order to qualify for the FISA, there has to be some sort of worry about espionage. Now, as you know, I came forward about working for Joe Biden, his corruption, and also what he did to me, which was sexual assault in 1993. I had filed a paper. There's another paper from 1996, a legal document that refers to it. There's witnesses. I had corroborating evidence, but I was unable to get an investigation against Joe Biden. So when it came public in 2019, I was immediately called a Russian spy, even though I had no connection to Russia at all whatsoever. And so it went from there. I got attacked by the media. Joe Biden weaponized, with Anita Dunn's help, who was the White House, you know, advisor at the time. She also the founder of Time's Up, ironically. With help from her and others, the media, the legacy media, went after me and destroyed my reputation. I mean, Sabby, I lost everything. I don't even have a car anymore. Like, I lost everything. I couldn't get work here, substantial work here, because I was considered a security risk. It was very, very hard. I started doing op-eds and things for RT, and then, you know, piecemealing independent work that I could, but nothing stable, you know. So that was also part of my decision. Since I was in Moscow, I was offered a stable position and, you know, able to live. And so I did. But when the attorneys were able to file these claims, when you're under political asylum, you come up every year, they review your case and say, okay, where are you now? And I voluntarily, even before my year was up, said, hey, you know what? I think I'm okay. I want to try to go back to the US. I really want to attend a family event at my daughter's wedding. I want to try to file these charges. My attorney needed me here in the US to do certain things. So I wanted to come and try, and you know, they were, of course, Russia's been very gracious to me, and the people that they said, okay, you know, and it's your legal obligation, really, if you feel like your life is no longer in immediate danger, to inform them. And I wasn't getting any death threats like I was in 2020 all the way through to, you know, 2023 and 24 when I left last year. So I came back and I didn't get too much hassle. I feel like the protection around Biden had started to erode. And, you know, it was right around the time people were starting to the knives were turning right on him. A2 Brutus, you know. So his house of cards, it has been collapsing. What's frustrating for me, though, is everyone's, you know, the media, the legacy media, is destroyed my reputation, but has done nothing to retract. When I've proven the things that they were accusing me were wrong, they've done nothing to detract it. There's still a lot of hate and vitriol about me out there. So I still once in a while get threats, or people say, hey, you should be pushed out the window, and things like nasty things. Those kinds of threats I'm used to. The more egregious ones, Sabby, were ones I was on your show about, like, for instance, people showing up at my daughter's work, doxing her, people showing up at her residence, people showing up and trying to take my horse, people threatening to actually come to my house and kill me. You know, those are really serious. And I think with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, you see how dangerous it can be, that kind of vitriol. So that's where we're at now. I'm here. I've been filing a case against Joe Biden because there's no statute of limitations in DC for third-degree sexual abuse. So I have filed, we're wanting to file that case and get Merrick Garland to start the investigation so it can be filed. But we needed a consensus. We needed a mandate. And so far, I've gotten almost 5,000 signatures. So if some of your listeners, if they support me, if they believe what happened to me in 1993, please, we want at least an investigation. Sign the petition. That's all you have to do is sign it. And, you know, we're trying to get to 5,000. And then we're going to take it to Merrick Garland and say, okay, you have no excuse. There's a mandate. Let's file this.
And here is that petition. I just want to show everyone here. It says, no man is above the law. Charge President Joseph Biden with sexual abuse. Right now, there's 4,618 signatures. Again, the goal is 5,000. Eric, if you can add share the link to this petition in the chat so that people can sign the petition. This is very, very important, because one of the questions I do have for you, Tara, since it is apparent that Joe Biden is not going to be running for re-election, people can no longer use the excuse, well, you can't charge a sitting president. So right. He will be, and I would also add that I think that if he doesn't feel like he's fit to run for re-election, then he also shouldn't be serving as president right now. But that's a whole other topic.
That's absolutely on point. absolutely.
So there's that. But that being said, people can no longer use that excuse because come November, or actually, well, come January next year, whether it's Trump or Kamala, we all know it will not be Joe Biden. So I'm just wondering, with your particular situation, do you think things could be better for you this time around legally?
I don't know because, and I think I don't know if things are going to be better for Americans all the way around because we're on the precipice of World War III, and Kamala Harris was like down for every single policy of Biden. You have the same administration, you have the same, and what people need to understand is they're the front people, right? But it's the people working behind the scenes. It's the Anthony Blinkens, it's the Victoria Newlands. Although she's stepped down, she's still advising. So you still have the hawks in there. So for me, because the issue is, are they going to go after me for the sealed case in Northern California, accusing me supposedly of some sort of espionage or whatever, which is, not true. Then I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, because if it's the same administration, they're going to be trying to save his legacy, right? I don't think it's going to have the same bite. I don't think it's kind of like a barking dog, but I don't know. You see so many Americans, like they're still going after the Uhuru group, as you know, the Uhuru 3, and I'm very concerned for them. Their hearing is in September. And, they're the Black Socialist Party that were standing against the war against Russia via Ukraine. And they made a lot of, stances about that. And because of that, they were accused of sowing discord. They're now facing almost 10 years in prison for that. They didn't have any Russian ties. They didn't have Russian money. That's not true. They had like a meeting they went to for Friendship Russia. Well, I lived in Moscow, so I don't even know what they're going to say for me. But what I can tell you is that I've been very open and honest, and I'm not a spy, and they are not spies either. And so this fear mongering that's come through the Biden administration, it's still present with Harris.
That's right. And another thing I want to add to, and Tara, please explain to people about this as well. Going back, didn't your mother speak to former talk show host Larry King?
Yes, you can find that pretty easily online on Twitter. People put it up every once in a while. The Larry King show in 1993, she did. Yeah. So there's a recording of that.
Right. That's exactly what I thought. A lot of people don't want to mention that or bring that up.
No.
And there are a number, particularly Democrat, and this should not be a partisan issue, but it is. But there are a number of Democrat politicians that are also aware of that. And I've seen them make statements during interviews, or whether it's on social media, basically alluding to, oh, well, this is just a smear campaign because Joe Biden decided to run for president in 2020. And I said, well, Joe Biden's run for president multiple times. So It's not like that was the first time he was running for president. But I do sincerely hope that you do get some type of justice here, because, and it's not just you, there were other women that came forward about Joe Biden. And a lot of people forget to mention that.
Well, yeah, they've been smashed. They've been silenced. There's 7 other women. They destroyed them in the press, calling them crazy, or different versions of that. One of them was a young politician in Nevada, and it destroyed her career. She no longer, you don't hear of her. Like, she's gone. Lucy Flores. And that's really sad. Like, he has so much power. He's destroyed so many people's lives, not to mention funding a genocide that, and funding this, almost 200 billion has gone to Ukraine. And now as you know, the Pentagon just announced that they accidentally gave Zelensky 61 billion that they can't account for. Come on. Like, I just feel like we're living in a cartoon at this point. All this business back and forth about, is he running, is he not? And then him putting up a letter, but you don't see him. And then they show him, but you don't see him speaking. It's all just, I don't know. I feel like it's a very dark theater that we're in right now. It's just, and the American people are feeling angry and frustrated. And then you have the attempted assassination of Donald Trump as well in the midst of all this. And, I think people are really feeling dismal. At least I know I am, and politically homeless about like where to go when you vote. come election time for a leader. Like
That
who's anti-war? I don't know. Like, are there any anti-war candidates?
Well,
Not
Jill
really.
Stein is anti-war. Claudia De La Cruz is anti-war. Dr.
Yeah.
Cornel West is anti-war. But I hear you. I hear where you're coming from, and I'm curious your take on the media's response. I saw a video of Van Jones crying because he said, "I love this man," and referring to Joe Biden. He said, "I love this man." I've seen videos of Rachel Maddow saying he's a good man. He's a decent man. What is your response to that? All of these media pundits that claim that Joe Biden is a great person that they love so dearly.
It's really upsetting, actually. For me, it's an emotional response because I know the man and Joe Biden isn't. And I do know some of these media personalities that don't think that when the camera's turned off. I've heard them when their mics are off. They don't like Joe Biden. They never did. He was considered a blowhard and all of that. As far as Van Jones goes, give him an Academy Award and let him move on. I mean, come on. Like that's just, I don't even know if he believes his own narrative or if he said it so much that now he just believes it. But it's such nonsense. Joe Biden's not your friendly grandpa. He's short-tempered. He funded a genocide. He's funding hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are going to their grave for this endless war that he benefited from personally, not just, it didn't just go to defense contract. He pocketed some of that money, and that's well documented. It's being exposed. He committed a war crime with Nord Stream, which Seymour Hersh revealed publicly, and then, was blasted for it, but it's the truth. I mean, he has been one of the most racist, misogynistic, warmongering. He will go down in history, in my opinion, as the worst president in history. And I think it's abhorrent that they're making him some sort of hero. Not only that, though, he didn't even want to step down. This whole thing about, look at the grace he has and the sacrifice and stuff. He didn't want to step down. They had to muzzle him, basically, or I don't know what's happened to him, because you only see a letter, right? And with his signature, but he never gave an address. Not one of the family gave an address. And then the one person that did was the uncle who they call a drunk and don't listen to him. But he was revealing the fact that, that he's really ill and that he's probably on death's door. Well, you could see it. It was like, so it was, people were joking. It was like that movie Weekend at Bernie's. But the whole thing is, when Joe Biden was lucid, which I knew him then, he was short-tempered, very, very elitist, very, more into the power and what he was doing than he was into representing constituents. So I'm not just saying that because of what happened to me, because I'm bitter about it, because it's more than that. It's deeper than that. It really disillusioned me to see the amount of corruption that I saw at that young age. And it really changed the way I looked at politics and the Senate being in his office, because I saw it close up at work, and I was participating in it. They were wanting me to be complicit in covering certain things. And, I mean, it's gone to a level that's unbelievable. I mean, we have these politicians that have been in there since I was in my 20s. They're still there, and they're multimillionaires. We did not set up the system for politicians to become multimillionaires. They were supposed to do public service and then go back to their farms or their businesses or whatever it is they did. But that's it. Serve a certain amount of time. That was the whole purpose, not to have what we have now, which is basically crony capitalism.
That's right. 100%. How do you feel about some of the people that say that they were pretty close to the Biden family? For example, RFK Jr., when he first announced that he was running, he said that he's friends with the Biden family. I mean, he's been a little bit more harsher towards him since. But when he was first running through the Democratic Party, he said he didn't want to speak ill will towards Joe Biden because he was friends with the Biden family. So you have him. You have Mika and Joe from Morning Joe that made it very clear to the public that they're also friends with Joe Biden and the Biden family. I mean, to me, it just seems like a conflict of interest, especially for those that are in media.
It's a mafia state. That's what we're living in. We're living in a mafia state. These are gangsters. As far as RFK goes, look at who his daughter-in-law is. She works for the CIA. She wrote a memoir about it, right? She's very clear about her loyalty to the CIA. Yet he talks about the deep state. He's not RFK is not an outsider at all. And, for him to say he's friends with the Biden family, well, people are being careful and walking on eggshells because it's not about the Bidens, it's about the people around him that have a lot of power and can do destruction. Because right now Biden, is not capable of that. But the people around him are. People I knew that are still around him, like Ted Kaufman and others, and Dennis Toner and Anita Dunn, and some of the others that are some former Obama staff. You've got Obama pulling the strings behind the scenes. And he also did not, if you notice, Obama did not endorse Kamala. And I know it's controversial to say, but I think they're going to try to throw up Hillary at the convention. I think it's going to be an open convention. I think they're going to try to throw her up.
I told people not to sleep on Hillary because she just keeps popping back up into the spotlight every now and then. Like, you won't hear from her for a couple of months and then she appears again. But it is very telling that Obama didn't endorse Kamala. And honestly, I personally don't believe that Barack Obama thinks that Kamala can win, that she can beat Donald Trump. I also don't think that Barack Obama believes that she's the right person for the job.
You're right. I agree. I mean, and I think too, you have a lot of these things like RFK says he's friends. Well, I volunteered for the RFK Jr. Memorial, for his father's memorial, the 25th anniversary in 1993, right after what happened with Joe Biden. Someone in his office who's also a witness to what happened knows what happened to me. They treated me very well, and they knew very well how Biden was. They were not friends with him. I mean, maybe RFK has had some sort of friendship since, but my memory is that there was a little bit of animosity there. He was actually closer. His best friend was Strom Thurmond. That was one of and Orrin Hatch. Orrin Hatch was who Joe Biden had lunch with quite a bit. Christopher Dodd, these people. The whole Ted Kennedy thing, he was friends with them. Ted Kennedy did some, but there was also tension there, and egos there. And so, yeah, there was a bit, it's not all what it seems. Just like Obama and Biden are not that close, because Obama tried to make horribly racist remarks. I remember Joe Biden casually being racist in the office. Like, that's who he is. And they try to make him out to be this nice, really progressive, liberal, neoliberal grandpa. And he is not. He's a megalomaniac. And he's also a warmonger. He's a hawk.
How do you feel about the way he was towards Anita Hill? Because one of the things that I bring up to people who complain about the votes of the Supreme Court justices, so they can complain that it's a conservative court. Well, I always go back to Clarence Thomas, because I remind people that had it not been for Joe Biden, who was the chair of that committee, of that hearing that Anita Hill, she was testifying in front of them, he was the chairman. And he was the one that wouldn't allow Anita Hill's witnesses to testify. And Anita Hill, and for those who don't know, I don't know how young everyone is in the chat, but Anita Hill had evidence against Clarence Thomas, and she had witnesses, and Joe Biden would not allow the witnesses to testify. And I still say, till this day, had those witnesses have testified, Clarence Thomas might not be sitting in the Supreme Court right now.
And that's interesting you brought that up, because I talked with Anita Hill. She called me in 2020, and it was right after Joe Biden had called her to apologize. And she put me in her book, my case, in her book, which people can read her book. And so she had a very contentious relationship. She ended up, I think she was hopeful she could try to get to the Supreme Court, or whatever it was, whatever ambition she has. I think she ended up like staying in his camp for the election and not Trump's. But the point is that she was very dubious about him all of a sudden trying to apologize to her. And they tried to destroy her life. Again, that same machine really tried to destroy, and it's not for me to share, read her book and see what she wishes to share publicly, but they went after her in every way you can imagine, personally. And I think she had a lot of empathy for what I was going through at that time, because New York Times and Washington Post, basically the summer of 2020, were just using me as target practice,
Mm-hmm. No, it's 100% true. I think that this is why it's hilarious to me when I hear the Democratic Party or Democrat politicians, particularly those that were backing Joe Biden back then, when they say believe women or they're calling out accusations against Donald Trump, but everybody wants to ignore your accusations and other women's accusations against Joe Biden. And everybody wants to say, well, it's just Tara Reade. It wasn't just Tara Reade. There were other women that accused Joe Biden. And so it is very frustrating to me when I do hear people say, oh, he's been such a great person and he's going to have a great legacy. No, to me, Joe Biden's legacy is he's accused of sexual assault. He's a genocider. He's a racist. He was friends with the segregationists. He told people he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle. To me, that is Joe Biden's legacy. And I feel like a lot of people just want to focus on him working with Barack Obama. But some of us remember a different side of Joe Biden and some of the things that he said and some of the things that he has done. And it just drives me crazy that these media pundits, this is why I hate that it's so partisan, because MSNBC, CNN, we know we're going to support the Democratic Party for the most part. Fox News is going to support the Republican Party for the most part. So I can watch Fox News and I can hear them call out these things about Joe Biden, but then I look on MSNBC and they're not going to call it out. I can watch MSNBC and watch them call out things about Donald Trump, but then I can look at Fox News and I know they're not going to call it out. So there's no consistency when it comes to the media.
You're absolutely right. But we also need to hold our feet to the fire of the independent media, because they tend to, like, for instance, you are the exception, but you bring me on your show, for instance. Other people have, Katie Halper initially did, and then you had others that brought forward my story. But for the most part, you look at the independent media, they don't say a word about my story. And I had sealed warrants on all my communications and a case against me with a grand jury impaneled and death threats. And yet you don't hear a word out of some of those, and we won't say them here, but we know who they are. They're the sausage fest that is. We don't hear from them. I'm sorry, but that's another word. It's dominated by men, and they literally don't talk about it because whatever reason, they tiptoe around it. Maybe they might mention me in passing, but I'd never be on their show and they'd never really talk about my case. But my case is relevant because if they're going after the right and the left, and that's what people need to understand. It's a duopoly, right? So the Department of Justice and FBI, an intelligence agency that's hijacked our country, have turned their scope to Americans that are speaking out or, raising a fuss about whatever. And I obviously spoke out quite loudly and with really no backing. On my little podcast that I did on INN and my little, my book that came out in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. But otherwise, Sabby, really, I had the Megyn Kelly interview, and then Tucker Carlson lifted my story quite a bit, which really helped. And I think when he came and visited in Moscow, I was one of the few people he interviewed. That also kind of cleared the path for me to be able to come back to the US, because it was like a warning shot to the FBI and DOJ. Look, we're watching. We see you. You're going after American citizens. Stop it. And unfortunately, there's many people that don't have that publicity of any kind that are just being put in jail and being silenced. And so although it's really gotten extreme under the Biden regime, this is a problem that's been building since Obama, and I think just accelerating. And it's coming from the Democrats, but the Republicans are participating as well.
Why do you think some people are choosing not to have you on? I'm not going to talk about mainstream media. We know their agenda, but why do you feel that you are ignored by some in independent media of all spaces?
Because some of them have been accused of being a Russian asset. So it's all about me living in Russia. Nobody wants to challenge that narrative because we're still like in this weird McCarthyism. It could be because some of them simply don't believe what happened to me. Could be. I don't know. But I think a lot of it is they're worried that they'll lose access to certain people that they have, which is tenuous as it is, because pushing the envelope with other issues. It's like pick and choose. And that's why they call some independent media controlled opposition. And intelligence loves that. They love the fact that they can take a media like that's independent and say, okay, We'll let you go so far talking about Gaza. We'll let you go so far talking about Ukraine. But you go on this thing, we're going to shut you down. So it's like controlled opposition, and that's how it works. And it's not right. We should be lifting all the stories, and you do a good job with that, Sabby. In fact, I have to say this for your audience. You're one of the people I go to on Monday morning. I look at what you've been covering and what you're watching, and then it kind of gives me some guidance. So I appreciate what you do.
Oh, thank you. I'm curious. I want to know that. Have you ever been invited onto TYT?
No.
Interesting.
No.
Maybe we should have a petition for that.
No.
It's I think that I don't know what's going on with some people, but I've brought people on the show that I heavily disagree with, and we've had drag out arguments on the show, but I don't think anybody should be prevented from telling their stories. So to me, it's just, I don't agree with that. But
people are really scared about the Russia thing because, I've been telling the truth about Russia. It's beautiful. It's an easier country to live in financially if you're an American that's been struggling. And I'm going to give an example, which I've never given to anyone. I'll give this to you. In 2020, I never brought this up because I was going through what I was going through trying to reveal the Joe Biden story. I had a reaction to the Pfizer shot. I had the Pfizer COVID, whatever. It was required of me to travel, and I was traveling somewhere, and I had, how they were requiring that. So I got the Pfizer vaccine, and 2 days later, I was in the ICU they could not get my heart regulated for 3 days. And then I got an aneurysm, and I still have it in my heart. And then I was told that the protocol I had to follow was, some medicines that are quite expensive. One of those medicines, I just went to go refill it, and I can't refill it. It prevents heart attacks and strokes. It's $2,133.
What?
Yes. And it's a medicine that's given quite often after you've had these kinds of issues to prevent stroke or heart attack. And I said to the pharmacist, I don't have this laying around. They're like, most people don't. Most people can't get it. I'm like, yeah. So imagine the same company that gives you the vaccine that causes the harm. Then you have to take this one other medication the rest of your life to prevent further harm. But that is so prohibitive because it's, $2,000 is rent, right? For one person. So it's amazing. That same medicine, and this is what I wanted to share about Russia. You know how much it is, Sabby, in there in Moscow?
How
$50. The equivalent of $50. So what's happening? And that's what I want to say to people. What they're giving this terrible narrative of Russia, but Russia's capitalist. You have efficient transportation, you have education, you have healthcare. Like when I was there, I had to get some healthcare. I never spent more than $200. I had full healthcare that was, prescriptions I could afford that were in the $10 to $20 range or whatever. You have all kinds of ways to cheap transportation, metro, taxi. I didn't need a car. Very efficient, very clean, very safe to walk around. And I went to other cities. I went to, Sochi. I was in Vladivostok, which is the Far East, across the country. I was also in rural areas because I wanted to see the rural areas outside in the Caucasus. And there's a lot of building there. And what you're seeing is, and I'm saying this as a geopolitical analyst, I'm not trying to be partisan or give some sort of, whatever, propaganda. This is actually what I saw and what I experienced. People are thriving. The middle class and the working class are thriving. They're building. Young people. I met people at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, which I spoke at. I met people at the Youth Festival in Sochi, and they were young entrepreneurs between 25 and 35. They're starting businesses. You can afford an apartment. 80 to 95% of people in Moscow own their own flat plus a dacha, which is a little country house. They don't struggle. You don't have that same desperation there. So when I came back a couple months ago to for the reasons that I outlined to you, I was really shocked by how shabby Seattle looks, New York looks, because I went to Seattle, New York, Savannah, and a couple other cities. I was shocked how much decline there's been in the East Coast and on the West Coast and the cities. Rural areas, it's empty storefronts, but not what you're seeing the crime-wise, homelessness, whole tent cities in Seattle. People walking around like zombies, talking to themselves. And I'm seeing it. I'm not just like seeing like little videos, like I'm seeing it in real life. And it's so sad for me to see the country I was born in just decline, to such an expedient, way. So I think what they're hiding from us about Russia is that they're combining kind of a socialistic, the old way of providing education, healthcare that's affordable, and housing. And then, investing in small businesses, cutting the red tape. In America, we're not doing that. And you see the results. People have nowhere to live. They have nowhere to be. They're dying. Yep. And I just, I really wish people would put aside their bias that they hear about Russia and like, don't think about what country it is. Look at their system and say, wait a second, they're doing a lot better than we are. Is that why they're trying to make them sound so terrible? I don't know.
That's right. That's right. Well, Tara, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people go to follow your work?
At Reade Alexandra on Twitter. So it's at READE Alexandra. And then if you look up tarareadepodcast.com, that brings you to my link tree, and that's all my links.
Awesome, Tara. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, that was Tara Reade. Again, you can help Tara by filling out that petition here, which we have. Again, no man is above the law. Charge President Joe Biden with sexual abuse. Right now, there's 4,000. This could be updated because I had this posted from earlier, but 4,618 signatures. The goal is to get to 5,000 so she can bring this case forward so that there's justice there against Joe Biden, because Lord knows there needs to be justice against Joe Biden. Welcome, guys, and happy Tuesday. We will do call in after the show tonight. I have a lot to say. I'm pretty sure you have a lot to tell me as well. Since I was gone all last week, I did a impromptu live stream on Sunday because the news broke that Biden dropped out. So I was like, I'm gonna have to just go live and cover this bad boy, right? But we have so much more to discuss tonight. Lots of stories. I didn't even know. I was like, I don't know if I'd have time to cover the Secret Service story because that broke like a couple hours ago. And I was like, I got too many stories. So I may have to try to cover that on Thursday since I'm not live tomorrow. But here we are. Lots to discuss. Let's go ahead and give shout outs to people in the chat. Thank you so much, Cowpoke Ranch. As a Kansas Trump supporter, the fact that the Democratic Party hasn't even mentioned our governor, Laura Kelly, as a presidential option is mind-blowing. She's pretty loved here across party lines. I have never heard of Laura Kelly. That is interesting. And thank you for this one as well. If Laura Kelly ran, I'd vote for her. But otherwise, I'm sticking with Trump. Laura Kelly would make society normal again, just like we Kansans like it. That is interesting. I'll have to look up Laura Kelly. I am not a Trump supporter, but I'll have to look that up. Thank you, David. Russia-phobia is such a problem. Yes. I promoted Jill Stein recently, and someone I know replied, Russian asset ? I blame the movies and shows we grew up on. I agree with you. And the media. I blame the media as well. So yeah. Shout out to JB says, hello, everyone. Kamala will not beat Trump, in my opinion, because like Pepperidge Farm, Black people remember. It won't turn out good for her. Have a great show, Sabs. Forehead kisses to all of you. That's my comrade there, JB from RBN. Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone that is a Sabby patron. I'm excited about tonight's show because you know what? I did a little bit of math for tonight's story. So we're going to look at some math. All right. Shout out to everyone who's a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators, there's Sabsters. Don't forget about those Sabbies. those Sabbath snacks. And of course, there are members. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for 100blackroke.el and Pamela Stamps. There it is. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate all your help, fam. What's up? Oh, we got some good stories to discuss tonight. We have some good ones. But first and foremost, go ahead and smash that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Yeah. Let's get started with the first story, shall we? Oh, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Roger Meadows for sending me this story because I was on vacation when this happened and I probably wouldn't have known about this, but something happened in New York and that involves Donald Trump's polling with Black voters in New York. Dun, dun, dun. Peep this, fam. Trump trails Biden by just 8% in New York. Surge of support among Black and Jewish voters. For the sake of this segment, we're going to focus on the Black voters here. Now, of course, this is right before Biden dropped out, so this could change, but I want to show you what it says right now. Again, New York, this is a blue state. I told you about a week or two ago that it was now considered to be a battleground state because Biden was struggling a little bit there in New York. Peep this. Donald Trump is in striking distance of President Biden in a new poll of New York voters, where the former president boosted big gains among Black and Jewish Empire staters. Let's come down here. If the election were held today, Biden would receive 47% of the vote to 39% for Trump. Now, this is according to the Siena College poll. This was 805 registered voters that participated in this. The poll's margin of error is 4.1%, means the race could be even closer. Now, again, this is right before Biden dropped out. But peep this. Check this out. And we were looking at here, I want to show you, we'll look at all of it, but I want to highlight here the Black voters here. In New York State, according to the Siena poll, Biden received 59% support among Black voters. That's a decrease from before. And Donald Trump is now receiving 29% support among Black voters. Some people may see this and say, that's no big deal. It's 29%. It's not like it's 50, but that is a big deal. The fact that a Republican candidate is receiving that amount of support in a blue state from Black voters, that is very interesting. And everybody needs to pay attention to that. Now, New York State, listen, just like Massachusetts, they have their red parts and they have their blue parts. But because there's so many people concentrated in New York City, similar to Massachusetts, a lot of people are concentrated in the Boston area, the state tends to turn blue. Upstate New York, there are red pockets. In fact, particularly in the rural part of upstate New York is red for the most part. But because so many people are in New York City and most of them tend to vote Democrats, that's why the state becomes blue. Now, some of you may be wondering what on earth could have happened that would have caused Black voters in New York to lean towards Donald Trump. Let's go into this article a little bit more. And I have another I told you so tonight. I'm sorry. We're keeping with it. The I told you so's. Listen to this. We are going to win New York. This is the presumptive Republican nominee, 78, claimed at May 23rd South Bronx rally. That was when he had the rally in the Bronx. The Siena survey found that Trump is supported by 29% of Black New Yorkers and 26% of Latino residents ahead of his November 5th rematch against Biden. Again, this could change now that it's Kamala instead of Biden. In 2020, Trump, who at the time also claimed he was on the cusp of winning New York, was supported by 6% of Black New Yorkers and 22% of Hispanics. So that is a significant increase for Donald Trump among the Black voters. He went from 6% in New York to 29%. This is not something I think people should just wave off. It also shows here, let me go down here, right about there. The 45th president who grew up in Queens but changed his state of residence to Florida while in office is significantly outperforming other Republicans, with the same Siena poll finding that the GOP 15 percentage points behind on the generic congressional ballot, 50% to 35%. The ex-president lost New York to Biden by 23.1 percentage points 4 years ago and suffered a 22.5 percentage point defeat against Hillary Clinton in 2016. This part right here is important. The last Republican to win the state of New York was Ronald Reagan in 1984. And just one GOP nominee has topped 40% support since 1992. George W. Bush, who got 40.1% of the New York vote in 2004. So, what is happening here? Let's go back up. Again, this was recent, right before Biden dropped out. Donald Trump now has 29% support from Black voters in New York State. Let's dig a little bit deeper. I want you to hear from some of those voters that said that they are going to support Donald Trump. So again, this is from Spectrum News. Again, Black New Yorkers. I can't play the video because it's local news and local news has copyright. So sorry about that. So I'll just go to the text here. Some Black New York voters discuss their support for Trump. People need to hear this. Again, this is also they're highlighting that Siena College poll. Madeline Brahmi said in November she'll vote for Trump, although there was a time in her life when voting for Trump would have been unthinkable. I was a 45-year loyal Democrat. In 2016, Brahm did not vote for Trump, but she did in 2020. Navigating the criminal justice system after 2018 murder of her son became a turning point. Now a vocal supporter of Trump, Brahmi even took the stage during the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. In an interview with New York One, Brahmi said, "I knew that he had a conservative values that the country was losing." This part right here, conservative values that the country was losing. So this is something that I've tried to explain to people before, is that I think a lot of times, when you're looking at like the voting populace, people just make this assumption that all African Americans, that we're nowhere near the conservative lean. Like, I'm not conservative, but having lived in places that are a little bit more conservative, like I lived in South Carolina, I know a number of African Americans that do support conservative values, but they vote Democrat because they're afraid that the Republican Party is going to take away their rights. Dead serious. Dead serious. In fact, even when it comes to some of the social issues, and this is something a lot of people don't like to hear this, but for those of us that grew up in the church, even when it comes to some of the social issues, some of the Black voters that are heavily religious don't support some of the LGBTQ issues because of the church. So this is one of those things that some people will point to and they will say, how is it that the Republican Party was not able to gain the Black vote the way that the Democratic Party did, right? And you have to remember, if you go back in history, you'll see that at one point in time, a lot of Black people were conservative. Things changed over time because the parties changed. That being said, a lot of it is based on fear. I was talking to my dad earlier today, and he was talking about Project 2025. And I was like, Dad, all this stuff, some of these things, if you actually read it, have already been enacted. They've been going on for years. Some of these things are just based on fear. It goes on to say here, for Linwood Dillard, November would be the first time he votes for Trump. As a business owner, Dillard said during the pandemic, Trump was giving a lot to the people that were small business owners. This is another thing that I've heard from Black voters. When Biden got in office, I just didn't see the same thing. Brahme said when it comes to inflation, she's felt the financial squeeze during the Biden administration. So we're getting down to the economic issues, the bread and butter issues, right? The middle class has been pushed down to the working poor, and the working poor have been pushed down to the working dirt poor. That's what's happening. That's coming from Brahme. I'm among the working dirt poor, and I'm so sick and tired. So this is one of the things that I have heard from Black voters that I talked to out on the street. And I said, why are you leaning that way? You weren't leaning that way before. And they bring up the economic issues. Number one concern for most voters is the economy. I don't own a small business, but having talked to people that did own small businesses, they did say they appreciated what they got from Donald Trump during that time. Now, we got to get to another part of this discussion that brings in the Democratic Party. Because for the longest time, the Democratic Party has relied on our vote, on the Black vote, but they haven't really done anything for the Black community. And I want to take you back to something that was revealed. One of the things that was revealed with the Nancy Pelosi emails when it came to BLM. Peep this, fam. I tweeted this a couple of days ago. Listen to this. These were instructions for Democrat politicians during the George Floyd protest. Don't offer support for concrete policy solutions. Listen to this, guys. This has continued with any ask from the Black community. They implement policy for every group except Black people. You don't owe them a damn thing. And we'll look at this. This is straight from that information that was revealed from Nancy Pelosi's email. Tactics: meet with local activists. If approached by BLM activists, campaign staff should offer to meet with local activists. Invited BLM attendees should be limited. Everybody paying attention, right? It should be limited. Please aim for personal or small group meetings. Listen to their concerns. Don't offer support for concrete policy positions. Frontline district staff should meet with activists. Again, we want to focus on number 2. Don't offer support for concrete policy positions. Ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic Party has been doing this to the Black community as long as I've been alive. They'll pander to you. They'll offer you symbolic gestures, but it's revealed right here in the instructions that was given to the Democrat politicians. Remember, at that point in time, wasn't Nancy Pelosi Speaker of the House? So what was told to Nancy Pelosi and to get her sheep in order was not to offer any support for concrete policy positions. And I have seen this happen with every interest or concern that has been brought up by the Black community to the Democratic Party. They pander to you. They kneeled in kente cloth. They gave you Juneteenth as a holiday. But when you start asking for real reform, real change, real material conditions, they're not offering you any concrete policy positions. This is how someone like Donald Trump was able to beat Hillary Clinton. This is why Donald Trump now has 29% of the Black vote in New York. You can't just continue to do this. You can't just continue to pander to Black Americans and expect us to just show up and stand in line for 10, 14 hours at some of these polling stations to vote for a party that doesn't give you anything. It doesn't do anything to help the community. But you'll watch them put everybody else above you. And speaking of this, here's another one about New York. People don't want to hear it. But part of the reason why you're hearing more Black voters in cities like New York and Chicago and here in Boston say that they are willing to vote for the Republican Party is because they are tired of being ignored by the mayors in these cities that claim that they are trying to work with the Biden administration. All Democrat mayors, they are tired of being ignored. They're tired of their communities being neglected, but they are watching other groups come into their communities, and these mayors are giving them everything. Now, I brought this up back when. When it was brought to my attention that Mayor Adams was giving things to migrants that he wasn't willing to give to Black New Yorkers who grew up there. This is not to shame migrants. I have no problem with international community. I have no issue. I understand why they're coming here. They're coming here because our government destroyed their countries. And you got to take it all the way back to that. Because if our government would have left those countries alone, those people would still have a country that they can live in that is doing okay, or at least well economically. Our government has put so many sanctions on all these different countries. These people have nothing left. Nothing left. Look at how they destroyed Haiti. Look at what they did to Venezuela. Okay? Country after country. But now what you have happening is you have corporations, you have CEOs, you have the billionaire class, you have corporate interests that has found a way to pit the workers against each other. And now they're doing this with the migrant community versus the Black American community. Eric Adams is no different. Think about this when you wonder why he has 29% of the vote in New York. Listen.
What?
Adams insisting the prepaid cards would curb the cost of inefficient food distribution that has led to expensive food waste, potentially saving taxpayers roughly $7 million a year. Adding the cards can only be used for food and baby supplies, with a limit of up to $1,000 per month for a family of 4.
If this is successful, we're going to expand it even more.
The pilot program drawing immediate criticism, including from rapper 50 Cent, who went on to social media to vent his frustration, writing, "Maybe Trump is the answer."
Now, 50 Cent is a rapper, a celebrity, but he's also from New York. And I don't agree with him on everything either. He can be an ass sometimes. He can be an ass sometimes. But he came out swinging against Eric Adams and basically was like, G-unit. Because you can go to the Bronx. You can go to some parts of Brooklyn. A lot of Brooklyn's been gentrified now since I've lived there. And you just see just people just living in despair. Buildings falling apart. One disaster away from crumbling to the ground because the infrastructure is so bad. And people were upset because they said Eric Adams is giving them debit cards, giving them $1,000 a month when there are Black New Yorkers that don't even qualify for SNAP benefits. This was when it was first announced, by the way. The benefits have increased since then, if you didn't know. Okay, they've increased since then. I have spoken to Black New Yorkers, Black people in Chicago, Black people here in Boston. And from what I have seen and what I've been told, they're showing me that some of these, the amounts on some of these debit cards exceed what they get for SNAP benefits. For those who don't know, SNAP, like food stamps, that's for food as well. So you can't treat people in such a way and then wonder why they are deciding not to support the party anymore. Let's go on a little bit more here.
I told 50 Cent to hit me up. I would love to explain it to him.
And over the weekend, Texas Governor Greg Abbott joining the choir of criticism while on Fox News, calling the program insanity.
It may be the most reprehensible thing that I've seen take place over the past 48 hours.
It's the latest effort by New York City officials to deal with the ongoing migrant surge. More than 173,000 migrants and asylum seekers have arrived in New York City since the spring of.
spring of 2022. So, and it has increased since then. Now, Jamie says $1,000 a month is ghetto housing. So they're not paying for housing. That's the other thing. Particularly here in Boston, they were brought into the Reggie Lewis Recreation Center, and all of the Black people in that neighborhood that either worked at that recreation center or their kids played sports at that recreation center, they were kicked out. That's the thing. So I warned people back then this was going to be a problem because Black people in those communities were very angry, and they have every right to be upset. You can't get mad at people for being pushed out of their neighborhood. You can't get mad at people for being, basically ignored for all these years when they've asked for these types of benefits, when they've asked for help. There's Black people in Roxbury sleeping on the street. So, and then you expect them to show up and vote for the Democratic Party? Why? Why would they do that? Why would they do that when Eric Adams said he's reached out to the Biden administration to help him deal with this? No response. Why would they do that when Mayor Wu and Governor Healy here in Massachusetts have said back and forth the Biden administration has ignored them and is not helping them with this issue? We don't have any more emergency shelter housing. It's all gone. It's all used up. So that's where the hotels come in. That's where the recreation centers come in. And so that's where they're housing people now. But what you can't do is you can't sit up there and look past the people who were born there, grew up there, or those who came here legally, and they've been asking you for help and support, and you tell them the city doesn't have the funding. But when another population comes in, again, it's not their fault they're here. When another population comes in, you're willing to do what you need to do to help them. And then they wonder why. I've spoken to a number of Black voters that have told me to my face they are not happy with the issue at the border. Now, is that a conservative point of view? Or is it their reality because of what is happening in their neighborhood? This is one of the things that bothers me about the partisan situation. Not everything is a partisan issue. Sometimes things are just facts. Now I want you to see this video because I thought this was interesting. This account, Cornbread, posted this on X. Young Black Americans of the U.S. listen. Understand why they're letting in so many immigrants from Mexico, South America, the Caribbean, Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, China, Africa. I don't know so much about China. I don't know about the China one. Because some of these countries, I don't agree with him. Some of these countries, they come here on visas. I know for a fact because I've dealt with that. But listen to what this guy says here, because people need to see what the capitalist class, what the billionaire class is trying to do. And don't say I didn't warn you about this. Listen to this.
Why is the borders open, though? Because the United States is in a real tough pickle right now. My generation, we worked hard. I worked for Verizon. But my kids, your generation, y'all not going to do sanitation work, pick up garbage. Y'all not going to be postal workers. Y'all not going to be electricians. You're not going to be plumbers. You're not going to do construction. Y'all starting podcasts. Y'all thinking about other ways of making money. What does that mean if these jobs are not being filled? They create programs for the migrants where they're giving them rent. They're giving them money. In Chicago, they have a program where they give them $9,000 every 6 months. So that's $18,000 a year for rent. That's an average of about $1,500 to $1,300 a month. That's good rent for somebody, right? So now they living in all these places. Your generation, your kids, y'all are not buying houses, bro. So you know what that is? Y'all not getting mortgages. United States needs people to get mortgages. Y'all are not going to college no more. Y'all not creating college debt. United States needs college debt. Y'all are entrepreneurs. Y'all are not joining the military. The military is depleted. That's why they're having things like proxy wars, where they got the drones dropping bombs because they don't have enough military. Y'all are not doing the things that I did, my grandparents did when they came here. So they bringing in millions of new people who are going to do these things.
I was thinking about this as well. I was thinking about those jobs. When I graduated from high school, there were a couple of my classmates that worked in construction right after high school. Others went to college, like myself. A lot of them joined the military, to be honest. Those days have changed. Remember, how many times have I told you on this show that military recruitment has declined dramatically? So like younger people are like, no, we're not trying to go fight these wars. And you can't blame them. We're not trying to go fight these wars. No. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the things that he was saying about the careers that younger people are choosing to do. Like they want to be entrepreneur. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That being said, though, those other jobs still need to get done. You still have to have construction workers. That has not been taken over by AI. You still have to have electricians, carpenters. I mean, you need people to do these jobs. Now, recently, there was a report that more and more Gen Z are choosing to go into the trade fields because they don't want the student debt. And I think that's great. Trust me, you don't want the student debt. You don't want the student debt if you don't need it. But the point of this is what you see right now happening in New York can happen all over this country. 29% of Black voters in New York, according to that Siena poll, are supporting Donald Trump. And I think people need to take the Democratic Party in particular. I think you need to take a step back and re-examine what has happened to that party and ask yourself why that is. Let's go to some of the comments here. All right. Thank you for the super chat, Newsroom. Laura Kelly, question mark, the Zio who refused to let people go to church on Sundays, even if they stayed in their cars in the parking lot during lockdown. No, thank you. Again, I don't know who this person is, but I have to look that up. That's interesting. JB said many Black people are socially conservative and they are more in line with the GOP. I can definitely confirm this. Yeah, I think a lot of people, more so Democratic Party leaders and elites, don't realize that. Like, I feel like people like the Hillary Clintons and the Nancy Pelosi's don't realize that. Thank you, Eric. The Black church is one of the many examples of how hierarchical realism works in our communities, Sabby. Mm-hmm. That's right. Thank you, David. Blue MAGA is greater than Project 2025 equals MAGA greater than Migrant Caravan. There you go. Christmas morning, the Black community isn't homogenous. NYC has a large Black immigrant population. We don't think alike. Yes, I'm very familiar with that and aware of that. I've lived in New York. I'm just telling you what the poll says. David, I live in NYC. I can't afford rent. Why can't I get $250 card for a family of one? But see, this is what, when I interviewed people about this is what they were complaining about. Thank you for the super chat, T-Rex. Illegal immigration impacts African Americans the most, and Democrats and progressives are blind to this. Total betrayal. Thank you, Cowpoke. It's an interesting name. Laura Kelly for president. Follow the yellow brick road home, y'all. I don't know what's going on with this Laura Kelly. Thank you, GDNPB. Look, those who are upset need to just look at what can be unburdened by the past. There's a Kamala Harris thing there. What can be unburdened by the past? Thank you, Egg64. I'm late to the party here, but did you happen to see, yes, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Did you happen to see BLM's Twitter post about how Kamala wasn't selected democratically and they ain't having it? Yes, I'm covering that tonight. We're going to get into that. All of it. All right, guys. Yeah, I told you it's some craziness going on. Craziness going on. Yes. Yes. Okay. I think we can move on to the next story. Oh my God. I'm doing pretty good on time so far. This is great. Yeah. Okay. We have an update from the International Court of Justice. Now, I do want to explain because I don't want people to get confused. This ruling from the ICJ is not connected to the ruling that was brought forward by South Africa. This ruling is about the occupation that Israel has. And from what I understand, I believe this originally was brought to the ICJ back in 2022. So from what I understand, this is an old thing, but they have just ruled on it now. So why is that significant? This is a separate case compared to the October 7th aftermath. So this is separate. This is solely about the occupation. And I want you to hear what the ICJ had to say about this, because again, this is on record. No, the ICJ, they can't enforce any of these laws, but this is on record. And as I said before, I don't think Israel will ever recover from the things that have been revealed about them on the world stage. Listen to the ruling about the occupation.
The court concludes from the evidence presented to it and on the basis of its analysis that a broad array of legislation adopted and measures taken by Israel in its capacity as an occupying power treat Palestinians differently on grounds specified by international law. The court notes that this differentiation of treatment cannot be justified with reference to reasonable and objective criteria, nor to a legitimate public aim. Accordingly, the court is of the view that the regime of comprehensive restrictions imposed by Israel on Palestinians in the occupied Palestinian territory constitutes systematic discrimination.
We're going to pause there. When it comes to the case that has been brought forth to the ICJ about the occupation, one of the things that they are calling out is that Israel's policies show systematic discrimination. We're going to hear all these, and then you let me know if this sounds familiar to you.
Based on inter alia, race, religion, or ethnic origin, in violation of Article 2, Paragraph 1 and 26 of the ICCPR, Article 2, Paragraph 2 of the ICESCR, and Article 2 of CERT. A number of participants have argued that Israel's policies and practices in the occupied Palestinian territory amount to segregation or apartheid in breach of Article 3 of CERT.
Segregation and apartheid. Systematic discrimination, segregation, apartheid.
Article 3 of CERT provides as follows, I quote, "States parties particularly condemn racial segregation and apartheid and undertake to prevent, prohibit, and eradicate all practices of this nature in territories under their jurisdiction." This provision refers to two particularly severe forms of racial discrimination: racial segregation and apartheid.
Racial discrimination, racial segregation, and apartheid. Sound familiar?
The court observed that Israel's legislation and measures imposed and serve to maintain a near complete separation in the West Bank and East Jerusalem between the settler and Palestinian communities. For this reason, the court considers that Israel's legislation and measures constitute a breach of Article 3 of CERT.
So, as some of us that have been covering Israel and Gaza for quite some time, as we've been saying, and we have identified Israel as an apartheid state, and there have been a number of Zionists that have pushed back on that, and they said it's not apartheid because we're the only democracy in the Middle East. What? As if, oh, everyone gets to vote. That doesn't mean you don't have apartheid. That doesn't mean you're not discriminating against certain groups of people. That doesn't mean you've been killing those people. You haven't been killing those people. And those things have been happening. Now, again, this particular case is not connected to October 7th. This was submitted to the ICJ prior to October 7th. Now, why is that significant, ladies and gentlemen? That is significant because it shows you that once again, Israel has been occupying. Israel was the aggressor prior to October 7th. And it gives more ammo to a group like Hamas to retaliate, to resist. That is why this ruling is so significant. Now, what needs to be done? Every country needs to reject the state of Israel. Every country needs to separate itself from Israel completely. Israel has to be isolated on the world stage at this point. This is no different. What was announced there at the ICJ, this is no different than the statements that have been made in the United States about the Black community. The segregation, the apartheid, the systematic discrimination. It's no different. We got rid of Jim Crow for a reason, right? So why is it that the same government that said Jim Crow was shameful, we had to remove that? Why is it that that same government is supporting Israel, who's doing the same thing, just to a different group of people? Now, everybody got to call that out. Because even now, shout out to Max Blumenthal for this one. The Nakba continues today in Khan Yunis as the Israeli genocide regime forces families to flee their tents by firing on a so-called safe zone. This is Biden's ultimate legacy. And this is what I'm saying, folks. Our government is supporting this. Now, I want you to think about that. And I want you to think about how you feel about the person, the murderer, the person who has been leading the charge, Benjamin Netanyahu. I want you to think about how you feel about him arriving here to the United States, because he's already here and stepped foot on the soil. I want you to think about why this murderer, we're not calling him a war criminal anymore. Okay. On this show, Netanyahu will be referred to as a murderer, because that is what he is. I want you to think about why this murderer has been allowed to set foot on U.S. soil. Him and his wife, they've already arrived, set to meet with Congress. You can see it here. Look at the way that they treat him. Look at the way that they treat Benjamin Netanyahu, right? Look at all of them. All of them. Now you see this, right? Okay. So look at the way they treat Benjamin Netanyahu, because according to the U.S. government, Israel is important to U.S. interests, right? Okay. So Netanyahu has killed all these damn kids. And this is how he's greeted. Yeah, they want you to be afraid of China. They want you to be afraid of Xi Jinping. Don't forget that.
ראש הממשלה, אם תגיד כן לעסקה על הנשיא ביידן. חברים, תודה.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And as much as people complain and fearmonger about Donald Trump, it's funny to me, the same Democrats that fearmonger about Donald Trump and have Trump derangement syndrome, they're totally fine with this murderer. This is why I call out the BS. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this is all about money interest. And to make matters worse, you have Mike Johnson over here. Now, Speaker Mike Johnson, he's decided that he's implementing a zero tolerance policy for anyone who wants to disturb Netanyahu's address to Congress. You know, like, who the fuck are you, Mike? Who are you? He issued the statement here. Shout out to Hotspot for keeping it real and on the mic as usual. It's a little blurry, but I can read it from here. Dear colleagues, as we prepare to host Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu tomorrow at our joint meeting of Congress, I wanted to provide you with a brief notice of additional security measures and a friendly reminder of the long-standing rules and decorum of the House. Due to the attention garnered by the Prime Minister's address, there will be an increased police presence around the Capitol complex and in the House chamber. In the interest of all involved, we will enforce a zero tolerance policy for disturbances in the building. All members should kindly inform their guests that any disruption of the proceedings of the House is a violation of the rules and may subject the offenders to prosecution. So here's Speaker Mike Johnson trying to play cop. Speaker Mike Johnson is ready to arrest some people and throw some bows. It goes on to say, if any disturbance does occur, the Sergeant at Arms and Capitol Police will remove the offending visitors from the gallery and subject them to arrest. As members, it is incumbent upon us all to likewise model respect and proper decorum as representatives of the American people and our institution, and as ambassadors of the United States on the world stage. It is our tradition to acknowledge every guest speaker's right to free expression, even if we disagree with their viewpoint. If any member creates a disturbance, the Sergeant of Arms will request that such action be ceased immediately, and we trust that request will be heeded. I want to thank you for your attention to these important matters and for your attendance at this historic joint meeting. So he's ready to arrest people, and I do want you to see this response here. This is also from Hotspot. So again, like I said, Hotspot is doing the damn thing. This was Mike Johnson here on C-SPAN.
So we did. We got it scheduled. It'll be next week. It will be a big thing. And I want you to know that there's a number of Democrats in the House who have said they're going to boycott the event. Yeah. Yes. And then some others are going to protest. Listen, we're going to have extra sergeants at arms on the floor, and if anybody gets out of hand, the Speaker of the House will bang the gavel. We're going to arrest people if we have to do it. We're going to get the message out.
So is Mike Johnson, who the hell does he think he is? You know, like this guy has gone more rogue as Speaker of the House than I've ever seen anyone else do. And Mike just doing what the hell he wants to do. Is anybody holding Mike accountable? He's out here acting like he's Al Capone or some shit. Anybody? He's another one that gets a lot of money from AIPAC. He's another one. So he's paid to do what he is doing. But nobody seems to be checking Mike Johnson at all. Now, I do want to add a little tidbit here. It has been announced that Kamala Harris apparently is not appearing at Netanyahu's address to Congress. However, she is meeting with Netanyahu. And I do have to say that because I think that that has been misleading on social media. There are people saying that Kamala Harris is not meeting with Netanyahu. Yes, she is meeting with him. We'll get to that in Kamala's story. Yes, she is meeting with him. She's just not attending this event where he is going to speak to Congress. But that's Mike Johnson trying to throw the shade. And I want to show you this as well because I want you to see. Hope I made that a little bit too big there. I want you to see this right here because this debunks what people are saying on social media. Not the bad cop. Biden officials say Harris won't shift course on supporting Israel. So this is important for people to understand because there's some rumors going around and they're not true. Officials arguing those claiming vice president will take a harder line with Jerusalem are engaged in wishful thinking. They say she shares ironclad U.S. commitment to Israel's security. So does everybody see this? I just want to make this very clear. Kamala Harris is meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. So we can stop all that I've seen on social media of people saying that she's not. And it says it right here. They even identified it. Those pushing this framing often point to how she became the most senior administration official to call for an immediate ceasefire march. However, they seem to ignore how the instant cheers from progressive supporters listening to that speech in Selma drowned out the vice president, clarifying that she was referring to the hostage deal that the administration has been trying to broker for months. So people need to understand this. Once again, I want to be very clear. Kamala Harris won't shift course on supporting Israel. She is meeting with the murderer. Again, that's how we will continue to refer to him on this show. But there is a little bit of good news here when it comes to Gaza. It appears that China has decided to step in. And if you think the U.S. was already angry at China, they're going to be even more pissed at them now. Check this out, folks. A little bit of hope there, though. China has hosted talks between 14 Palestinian factions, including Hamas, PFLP, DFLP, PIJ, and Fatah, to end the Palestinian national division and unify national efforts to stop the genocide. This is a profoundly helpful contribution. And here is that video here.
中方一贯坚定支持巴勒斯坦人民恢复民族合法权利的正义事业。
I'm going to read it to you. China firmly supports the just cause of the Palestinian people in restoring their legitimate national rights.
支持巴勒斯坦各派别通过对话协商实现和解。
Supports all Palestinian factions in achieving reconciliation through dialogue and consultation, and supports Palestine in realizing solidarity,
巴勒斯坦早日实现团结统一、独立建国。
unity, and independent statehood at an early date. This is what I was talking about, fam. I'm past the stage of let's just look for unity. I'm looking for solidarity. So this is solidarity. This is when you put someone else's needs before your own. And China is choosing to do that. They're choosing to put the Palestinian people's needs before their own. They don't have to do that.
中方已经并将继续为此做出不懈努力。
China has been and will continue to make relentless effort to this end. For anything more specific, China will release information when appropriate.
关于具体的情况，中方将适时发布消息。
So that is some good news on the Gaza front. I am happy to share that information. And I don't know. Of course, there's so much more that I want to see happen. But it does make me feel good to see that other countries are willing to step in and get involved. And it really does say something about the U.S. government. It really says something on a world stage, because it shows people that, once again, the United States got it wrong. The United States government got it wrong when they went after Julian Assange. Now, he has been released, but when we went after Julian Assange, the U.S. government got it wrong. The U.S. government got it wrong going after Edward Snowden. Actually, all those damn political prisoners, shit. Leonard Peltier, all of them. The U.S. government got it wrong. The U.S. government got it wrong when they refused to call, what was happening in Rwanda a genocide. They got it wrong, and they have it wrong now. And it says something about our government as a whole. And it shows you where we stand. And it also shows other countries that the U.S. government just wants to police the world. They want to be a dominating force. And they don't really want to coexist with anyone. Let's not get it twisted. Because even when it comes to Israel, the U.S. government still want to kind of be running things. It's like, okay, we'll have this partnership with Israel, but as long as we get to dominate all these other countries. I don't think anyone has like this equal footing with the U.S. government, because Israel gets money from us. Think about that. We'll stay tuned. That Congress speech happens on Wednesday. There are going to be protests outside of the Capitol. I know Answer Coalition has a huge protest. I've announced it on the show, 11 a.m. They're going to surround the Capitol. I've already seen videos of protesters there. So there will be a lot of protests happening tomorrow. And I will be very angry if Benjamin Netanyahu leaves DC with more money in his pocket to continue to kill children. Let's go to some of the comments here. Crystal says, Israel doesn't care since the U.S. has their back and will sanction that court too. That's a good point. But I look at it this way, at least with the ICJ, it's on record. It's on the world stage. Kelly says Mandela called Israel a worse apartheid state than South Africa. Yes, he did. Arcane, stop all funding to Israel. Yes. Thank you, Susanna. Just who does Netanyahu think he is? He can address the U.S. Congress. Do we know just what that arrogant, pompous cretin is going to talk about? Money. That's why he's coming here. Just like when Zelensky comes here, they want to leave with money. Rich says criminals don't prosecute criminals. Thank you for the super chat, Muhammad the Just. What's up? And thank you for the super chat, Trusting Success. The devil himself, allegedly his son in the U.S., speaks out against his genocide. Interesting. I didn't know that. I'll have to look that up because I haven't heard that. All right. Smash that like button, guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're keeping the party moving on. Keeping it moving on. Brace yourself for this next story. There was a woman named Sonya Massey who called the police because she believed that there was someone outside her home, someone walking around outside her home. So I just want to say this again. She contacted them. Unfortunately, her interaction with the police resulted in her losing her life. The video footage is now available. This is the body cam footage from that evening. I'm not going to play the actual shooting on here, obviously. We will play up until that point so you understand how these events unfolded, and then afterwards. And the reason why we're going to show afterwards is because I want you to hear the police officer tell the lie. Let's go ahead and go in. This part here is important. I do want to make sure I read the part here. And more people need to cover this story, by the way. All right. So on July 6th, as I said, Sonya Massey at her residence, she called the police. During the interaction inside the home of Miss Massey, former Deputy Sean Grayson discharged his firearm, striking Miss Massey and killing her. The interaction was captured on body-worn camera on the BWC video here. July 6th, the Sangamon County Sheriff's Department notified Illinois police and requested assistance to conduct an independent investigation into the shooting. July 17th, the Sangamon County State Attorney's Office presented evidence from the ISP independent investigation, which included the following BWC footage of the shooting of Sonya Massey to the grand jury. Then it goes on to say here, the grand jury returned a true bill of indictment charging former Sangamon County Sheriff's Deputy Sean Grayson with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of aggravated battery with a firearm, and 1 count of official misconduct. Let's go on. Now just scoot up here a little bit, because I guess they give you time to read it. Okay. Again, these are the officers arriving to her house. They're outside of the premises at this point here in the video. And they're looking around the property, I'm assuming at this point, trying to see if they can find anyone outside the property. So that's what you see happening here. Again, I am not going to show the actual shooting. We're just going to speed it up just a little bit because so I sped it up a little bit just so you see, again, they walked all around the property. So now they're at her door.
There's a bike sitting back there. Where? On the back door. I don't know if it's hers. I'll tap it. So it's more. Pretty nice in the contact with us because someone threw a picture of her. You'll try and call her 17 back here and let her know we're out front. Yes, mess that up good.
So pause here for a second. As you can see, they knocked on the door a couple of times and she didn't come to the door. So I'm going to go forward just a little bit.
She doesn't come to the door, so we're about to go tonight. Go ahead. Sheriff's office, the one you called.
Somebody is out here and I need to go help. Please don't hurt me, y'all.
Oh, we heard you. You called us.
Okay.
We're not over here. So what'd you hear?
Somebody keeps outside my house, y'all. Please,
Is this your car over here?
please, God, please, God, please.
Is this your car over here? Oh.
Please, God.
That's not your black car in the driveway? Oh, well, we checked your yard. We walked around the whole block. We didn't see anybody. Right? You know, we don't. We checked the whole area. There's nobody out walking around.
I know, y'all. Please, God, please, God. I'm trying to get help, y'all, but
What do you need help with?
nothing. I just, please, God, please, God, please. I don't know what to do.
Do with what?
Huh?
What do you need help with?
Nothing. I just wanted to see if I could help me.
What do you want help with?
Huh?
What do you want help with?
I heard somebody outside.
Yeah, we checked your house. We checked your backyard. I walked all the way through all these backyards. We checked your front yard.
We didn't see nobody.
Yeah,
So.
nobody's out here.
You didn't see anybody?
Nope.
Nope.
So let me pause here for a second and just interject. So again, apparently she heard someone outside her house or saw someone outside the house or whatever. By the time they arrived there, they said, and we guys showed this, they were walking around the property. They didn't see anyone there or whatever. But she heard something, which is why she called them, you know, and it takes a while for you. Obviously, like, I'm not trying to call the cops, but obviously it scared her enough for her to feel that she needed to call the police. Let's go on.
Checked the whole area.
Okay.
What took you so long to answer the door?
Oh, I was trying to put on some clothes, sir. I'm sorry. I was trying to get.
I got you. All right.
So that's none of his business. Okay. So here's some of the things I'm gonna point out in this video. What took you so long to come to the door? That's none of his business. It's in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? That's one of those questions that they ask you because they think you're up to something. You see that? Okay.
Is there anything else we can do for you?
Huh?
Is there anything else I can do for you?
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
You doing all right mentally?
Yes.
Sure?
My medicine and stuff.
All right. Okay.
I love y'all. Thank y'all.
All right. That's not your black car, though.
Okay. This is the part right here that really like broke my heart because he asked her, are you doing okay mentally? And she said, yes, I take my medicine. So who knows? There could have been some type of, mental, we don't know. I don't know. But at this point, you see her step back inside of the house and begin to close the door. And she says, I love y'all. That part right there really broke because it was obvious that she did not see them as a threat. But you'll see that's not the case later on, that they definitely saw her as a threat. Now the police officer is bringing up the car that's in the driveway. Whose black car does that belong to?
The SUV? Whose is it? You don't know? Someone just parked it in your driveway?
They brought it to my driveway.
And just left it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's run that.
Yeah. 19, I got a 20 clear.
Does anyone else live here with you?
Somebody else.
David Mary 43556.
You got a name? You got an address on? Take your name real quick. Attach this. See who we spoke to.
Okay.
Several.
Let's stop. Now, here's another thing I noticed. Let's go back just a little bit. Now, they are outside. Watch this. Pause. If you look towards the door right here, you see the officer entered the house. Why is he in the house? Why has he walked inside of the house? Did she invite him in? See, that officer who entered the house is not wearing a body cam. The footage that we are seeing is the officer that is walking around the property outside. He has on a body cam. The officer who walked into the house is not wearing a body camera. So, question again, did she invite him in? We don't know because he didn't have his body cam turned on. Why is he walking into the house? Let's continue. Pause. Here we go again. Now the second officer is entering in the home. And ladies and gentlemen, please take notes about this because I've seen people assume that if the police show up to your house, that you have to let them in. You don't have to let them in, you know? So that's what I understand here. Why is he entering the home? He has no warrant to search the home. Everyone write this down and pass this on to your kids if they are not aware of this. If the police officer shows up at your door, you are not obligated to let them inside of your home without a warrant. No warrant, no entry. Now they come into the home. And then once they come in, then they start to look around and look for something. Let's continue.
Okay.
Why is he looking into the room? Like what is?
Hello? Yeah, I need I got the sheriff department here, but I was calling for help from y'all. Okay, are you there with me?
So you see what's happening now? So she's on the phone and she said, I have the sheriff's department here, but I'm calling for help from y'all. So she is calling someone else now. Everybody hear this? Okay, let's continue.
They're here in my house right now.
Okay, I'll let you go deeper into that.
No, hold on, wait a second, sir.
You can hang up, Cottonelle. That's good. For what? You're there with the deputy, correct?
No, hold on, okay?
You can hang up. For what?
Just 1 second, okay? Okay.
What's up?
I got some paperwork. Can you grab that Bible, please?
Yeah. Hey, I just need your name so we can get out of here. Was there any damage previous to your car?
Previous, yeah. It was.
Okay, what was the damage?
Okay. Now here's the issue again. He's now bringing up the car again. What was the reason for the call? Because she said she heard someone basically snooping around outside her house. Why is the car now an issue? And he said, oh, that black car, da-da-da. She said, no, they parked that in my driveway. So do you see what he is doing? You got to pay attention to the way that police officers try to frame things. Now, all of a sudden, it's not my car. Someone parked the car into my driveway. Now, all of a sudden, he referred to it as your car. Do you see what they just did? How they just flipped it? And he said it's your car, even though she said someone else parked it in her driveway. And whether she has a mental issue or not, when she said, I take my medicine, at that point, the police should have not been involved in this issue. Police officers should not deal with any mental health issue, period. Let's continue.
I believe.
Well, what about windows?
Oh, it was something that happened earlier.
Okay, perfect. What is your last name? Shouldn't have to think about your last name. You're not in trouble. I just need to attach.
Massey.
Huh?
Massey.
Do you have an ID? That'd make things so much easier. I just.
Okay, let me explain something else and write this down. Does she have to show them her ID? No, she does not. Everybody see where this is going? So she called for help, and now she's the one that is being interrogated. This is not uncommon. This has happened before, but I'm trying to let you know what rights you have with the police. Now, she doesn't push back. She starts to look for it. But I'm just letting you know, you don't have to do that.
Just driver's license will do, and I'll get out of your hair.
I want to show y'all my paperwork.
I will get your paperwork.
What paperwork?
Okay. I got some paperwork.
Well, just get your ID.
Well, let's get your ID first, and then
one task at a time here.
Okay. Let me.
Here, grab your ID for me.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Your ID. One task at a time. So let's do an ID, and then you can dig around for your paperwork.
I don't know where my ID is.
you have that stack right there, maybe.
Okay. 1 second.
Just check on her.
Let me get this.
No, we don't need a fire while we're here.
Right. Okay.
Okay. He said, we don't need a fire while we're here. So apparently she had a pot on the stove so the pot was on, the eye was turned on. And so I guess he was trying to tell her, we don't need a fire while we're here. You do have something on the stove. So she gets up and goes to the kitchen to turn that off. Read the captions, because this part, the volume gets a little low.
Let me see. Okay. Where you going?
Huh?
Where you going?
Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I would rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
Pause. So what she says here, and for those of you that go to church or you grew up in the church, particularly in Black church, this is not an uncommon saying that she said here. So he assumed, he started walking back, said, I'm getting away from the hot water. Okay. Now you just told her to go take care of that because you don't need a fire. That's why she got up to go over there. If she was afraid of you, she wouldn't have let you in the first. Obviously, the door, she let you walk right in. She let him walk right in. So she had no fear. Do you see what I mean? So she let them walk in. So she goes on to say, he said, I'm getting away from you because of the hot steaming water. She goes on to say, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Now, that is something that is said traditionally in church. Now, I don't know if they know about that. But I have heard that I grew up in a Black church. I heard it. Okay. So she said that, and all of a sudden the devil comes out of this man. That's what you'll see. Watch.
You better fucking not. I swear to God, I'll fucking shoot you right in your fucking face.
Okay. Now, do you see how that just escalated? Now, she said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. He said, you better not. I swear to God, I'll shoot you right in your effing face. So you see how this escalated really quick? The police job is to de-escalate, not escalate the situation. I'm not going to show the shooting, obviously. But as you can see, he already grabbed the gun. Now let's come out of here. I'll come back to after what happens, because I can't show it on here, obviously. And we come back here.
Female. Headshot woman to female. 1078. Fuck.
I was on. I'm gonna go get my kit.
No, headshot, bitch. You're done.
Now you see this? So now the officer, the one who was wearing the body cam, he said, I'm going to go get my kit. The guy who fired the initial shot, the Grayson guy who shot, he said, F your kit, fuck your kit. She's already done. He shot this woman in the head. Shot this woman in her head.
You can go get it, but that's a headshot. God damn it.
God, fuck.
Yeah, I'm not taking fucking boiling water in the fucking head. And look, it fucking came right to our feet too. God damn it.
Now he's saying it came right to our feet. Look, nothing came to their feet. Now we're going to fast forward because I'm going to get to the part where they called it in. Let me play this here and I'll bring that part back in. They call it in and you're going to see where he starts to tell the lie. So let me bring this back in here.
Where's he at? Come on.
Now, a number of people on social media are pointing out this tattoo that's on his arm. From what I understand, I think this is a Nordic compass or whatever. Some people are saying this is a tattoo that usually white supremacists like have or whatever. I don't know, but a lot of people are pointing to the tattoo that's on his arm.
She's still gasping a little bit.
We got an EMS coming.
You want to hand me another rag up there? Up there, to your right. Right there.
Is there anything you can do before? No. Alright. I'm not even gonna waste my med stuff then. You wanna run down real quick? Nope, not yet. Alright. House is clear. She was the only one.
Where's the gun?
No, she had boiling water and came at me with boiling water.
You shot her?
Yeah.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's the lie. And this is why why they have charged him or they're indicting him now. Because we all saw this video. And I can't play the actual gunshot on here, but we all saw this video. He just said she came at me with boiling water, so I shot her. Yeah. Did you see that woman move? Did you see her come to him? No. The body cam footage released what actually happened. And had the partner not been there with him, you would have never seen that footage because Grayson never turned his body cam on during the time of that encounter. So do you see how, and let me make something very clear here. This is not a one-off. And I've tried to explain this over and over again. George Floyd, these things are not one-offs. Rodney King is not a one-off. Sonya Massey is not a one-off. You just hear about it more now because there are body cams and because people have cameras on their damn phones. Imagine if the other officer had his body cam off, it would have just been his word against someone that he just killed who can't speak for themselves. And you would just believe the police narrative. Now, you can see the full video on YouTube. It's available. So you can go watch the full video on YouTube yourself. But I saw the whole thing, and you can also watch it on Twitter. I saw the whole thing. She never charged at this man. Not once. But apparently, when she said that she would rebuke him in the name of Jesus, that triggered something in him. Her name was Sonya Massey. Young. Jason Cole highlighted her here. Remember this now that Democrats want to put a cop in the White House. 2024 is on track to be the deadliest year for U.S. police killings since 2013. That's Sonya Massey. She was a young woman, still had her whole life ahead of her. And she called the police because she believed that there was someone outside her house and she believed that they would help her. She believed that they would come and save her. And I told you guys before, I don't fuck with the po-po. I don't rock with the po-po. And I sure as hell don't trust no po-po. Period. They always back each other. You think his partner gonna turn on him? She trusted that they would help because that's really what they're supposed to be there to do. And they did not. This woman lost her life because she called the police for help. Now, I want you to think about that. When you look at the people that are in positions in politics in this country, okay? Everybody got you out here telling you need to tap dance for a goddamn cop. And that's right. I'm talking about Kamala Harris. And she issued a statement and saying it shouldn't have happened to Sonya. But you spent a long damn time of your career locking up black people and defending law enforcement because that's what you were. We can't undo what has already happened. We can't. But I had to talk about this story. You know why? Because I know, and I've already looked, the majority of my white comrades and indie media aren't going to touch this story. Some of the same ones who had no problem covering the George Floyd killings because it was very popular and lucrative for them at that point in time don't want to touch this story. They don't want to bring back police brutality incidents or stories because they're afraid it's going to turn off their audience. Well, fuck that. These are things that people need to talk about. And I noticed that after George Floyd, a lot of people stopped talking about police brutality, stopped talking about police killings, just totally pushed it to the side. Didn't want to deal with it anymore because they didn't feel it was profitable. People are dying. People are being killed by law enforcement. Now I'm grateful and thankful that there was the body cam turned on and he has been indicted. And they have gone after him, especially after they shot the body cam footage. He murdered that woman. So I'm happy that that happened. But that doesn't bring that woman back. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I continue to say, defund the goddamn police. This is why I continue to say that body cams were supposed to be a reform. And you can't reform police. You can't reform it. You have to tear that system down and something new has to be rebuilt. But it's rotten to the core. So you can't pull branches off the tree and wait for new ones to grow, okay? You got to pull up the tree from the root, from the damn ground. That's what you got to do. Your taxes support this. When police officers have to go to trial, you're paying for it. But they don't have money for your schools. You want to get the international perspective. You want to connect, make the connection here. And people say, what about, foreign policy and domestic policy? And I keep telling you, it's all connected. Who trains these damn cops? Okay. Who trains the U.S. cops? They get their training from the IDF. So the same things that you see the IDF do to the Palestinians, you'll notice you see some of the same things happen from police officers here in the U.S. on the American people. That's why it matters. For the people who ask me, don't talk about Israel. What about what's happening in our backyard? It's all connected. The cops get the training from the IDF. All connected. Let's go to some of the comments here. Eric, we can go to part 2. Thank you for the super chat, Graham. The murderer brought hostages that were held by Hamas with him. That will be in Congress tomorrow. Of course. Jesus. Patrick says he had no reason to ask for ID. No. You do not have to show them your ID, ladies and gentlemen. Conrizzi, they did not need to go inside her house. Nope. You don't have to let them in if they don't have a warrant. Brielle, this was the 6th law enforcement agency Grayson worked for since 2020. That's suspicious in itself. And he continued to get employment. The system protects it. Thank you for the super chat, Carlos. Asians get a hate crime bill, but FBAs don't need one. Thank you, sir. Bikes a lot day. Why couldn't they just leave her be and called her crazy? Oh, wait, common sense. Never mind. And if you go back and watch the video, you know where it should have ended was the moment when she went inside and she started to close the door. That should have been the end of it. Thank you, Janine. People with mental disorders most times can see entities. She's seen that demon in him and rebuked him. Spiritual warfare is real. Thank you, Tavis. Homeless people in LA be swinging pipes and bats at the police with no incident, but y'all are going to shoot this woman over a pot of water. Thank you, Anudran. That tattoo is a Vigvisier weather protection charm. My name is Icelandic. That tattoo is Icelandic. Poorly done, too. It's not inherently white supremacist, but this man clearly is misappropriating Nordic culture for race ideology. Thank you for that, Nordrum. Thank you for that. And thank you, Peter. Premeditated murder. He said what he did. Yeah, he said, I'll shoot you in the face. And that's what he did. Let's go to the comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you. Thank you so much for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Sabs, if you'd be so kind to read my X post below, but add to this CBI solution. Maybe we need to start running CBIs to relinquish cops of their bullets. Oh yeah, no civil asset forfeiture until after conviction. Thank you so much for that. I have to check that later. Okay. Final story of the night, ladies and gentlemen, and we do have a poll. Make sure you answer that poll result. So if you have not heard by now, it appears that all of the delegates have decided to choose Kamala Harris as the nominee. Now, I have a lot to break down here, but we're going to start with where she sat with Black voters in 2020. So we're going to start with that. And just as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, shout out to my comrade, Nick from Revolutionary Blackout Network. Kamala Harris in the primaries only had 1% Black support. This is the person liberals think will turn out Black voters. Just a reminder for those who forgot, because Nick always has receipts. Harris' support drops among Black voters. She was at 1%, right? So for all the things they said about Bernie Sanders, he had more support among the Black community than Kamala Harris did. So obviously, this is a problem for Kamala Harris. It's not just the fact that she couldn't get a delegate in her home state of California. She apparently did not appeal to the Black community. And one thing about us, you know, I would say more so maybe the bougie, you know, the Black boule may really like Kamala Harris. I don't know too many working class Black folks that's trying to rock with Kamala like that because they kind of see her as fake and phony. Like I'm just keeping it real. So keep that in mind when you think about the fact that these delegates just decided to they just picked who they wanted to be. And I told you again, the DNC is a corporation. They can choose the candidate. They can decide who the nominee is going to be, with or without our votes. Now, apparently, this is what's going to shock you. Black Lives Matter Grassroots Network, Black Lives Matter Global Network, not Grassroots, but the Global Network, the one that got all that money, they are not happy with the DNC's decision to just select Kamala Harris. And they apparently have issued a statement about this. They go through the timeline of the events here. Sunday, Joe Biden drops out. Kamala Harris announces campaign with Biden endorsement. Kamala Harris says she is going to work hard to earn the nomination. Kamala Harris makes calls to party delegates. Monday, Kamala Harris continues making calls to party delegates. Kamala Harris makes 2 public speeches. AP announces Kamala Harris has secured enough delegates to be the Democrat nominee. Kamala Harris releases this statement noting she has worked hard to go out and earn the nomination as promised on Monday night. A 24-hour process of talking to party bosses is not democratic, nor is it a process Democrats should be proud of. We do not live in a dictatorship. Delegates are not oligarchs, except they are. So apparently BLM didn't get the memo from the DNC fraud lawsuit, where the judge determined that the DNC did nothing wrong with Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign because the DNC is a corporation. They are allowed to select the nominee, and there's nothing you can do about that. Goes on to say, installing Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee and an unknown vice president without any public voting process would make the modern Democratic Party a party of hypocrites. We call on the DNC to create a process that allows for public participation in the nomination process, not just a nomination by party delegates. This don't look good, bruh. That does not look good. That the DNC is being called out by BLM. I mean, and look, I have my disagreements with BLM with all that money and stuff. I had my disagreements about that and the way that they tried to just take the name from the grassroots organization and go make millions of dollars. But they're correct here. Nobody voted for Kamala. Did you vote for Kamala Harris? You vote for Kamala? I didn't vote for Kamala Harris. Nobody voted for Kamala Harris, but yet she's the nominee. The oligarchs, they just pick who they want. Just pick who they want. So there's already pushback from BLM, and they made a public statement, not just on Twitter, also on their website as well. And just like that, she got the delegates, they all lined up and went along with her. And then what makes it worse, and this should be a big red flag to all of you, Wall Street got in line and supported Kamala Harris. Listen to this.
Semaphore also reporting, quote, the Wall Street money machine is roaring back to life with names like Peter Orszag, Blackstone's Jonathan Gray, and Roger Altman, all of them expected to give their support to Harris. We're also getting reaction from the global business community as well, including LinkedIn co-founder Reade Hoffman, backing Harris to be the next president of the United States. Also, we're hearing from other investors who say now is the time to get a more moderate candidate who can easily beat Donald Trump.
Pause. Does everybody hear what he said? So Reade Hoffman is a billionaire, by the way. So you got the billionaires backing you. And then you have this gentleman here who just said that it's great to have a moderate candidate, which is what I've said to people over and over again. Kamala Harris is the moderate. She's a moderate. She's not progressive. I'm tired of people like all these people coming out right now saying she's progressive. She's not. And when you look at where she stands on policy, you will see that she's not progressive. She's a moderate Democrat and establishment. So with Wall Street coming out, that's a big red flag.
We're also hearing from Microsoft President Brad Smith thanking Biden for his service, but he did not mention the vice president. Also, Box CEO Aaron Levy posting in part, the Democratic Party has a clear window to create a superior platform and story that is pro-tech, AI, science, immigration, and entrepreneurship, adding, quote, I hope and expect they will take this newfound opportunity seriously.
So once Wall Street gets in line, you know where that candidate stands. So everybody think about that for just a second. That is very troubling. But if you go back and you look at Kamala Harris's record, you would understand how we got here. Let's start with Willie Brown. All right, we're going to take it all the way back to San Francisco. We're taking it back to the streets, boo. Former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown writes about dating Kamala Harris, appointing her to posts. Now, I don't really care about the dating and all that hoo-ha, but I do want to get to the appointments. Listen to this. Yes, we dated. It was more than 20 years ago, wrote Brown, who said he had been peppered with calls from the national media about the relationship with Kamala Harris, particularly since it became obvious that she was going to run for president. We going back. Let's go down here. Brown was married at the time, and Harris dated. He and Harris dated. But because he was estranged from his wife, the relationship was not kept secret. And a Sacramento Bee reporter told People that Brown had a succession of girlfriends and would go to a party with his wife on one arm and his girlfriend on another. Now, it goes on to say here, a 1994 LA Times report about then California Assembly Speaker Brown rushed to hand patronage jobs described Harris as Brown's frequent companion. That report also cited a column from Chronicle's Herb Cain that called Harris the speaker's new steady. When they met, she was 29 and Brown was 60. I think we all know what that relationship was really about. So when people get on me and they say, oh, Sabs, don't say she slept her way to the top. Nah, this is what happened. That she was 29, he was 60. He had things to offer her for her career, and she had something to offer him. Look, we're adults. We're all adults here. We know how this works. Now, it goes on to say the couple split up in 1995, which flabbergasted those who found Kamala the perfect antidote to whatever playboy tendencies still resided in the mayor-elected jaunty persona. Although Brown supported Harris in her successful 2003 run for San Francisco district attorney, she tried to distance herself from him in that race, telling San Francisco Weekly that Brown, whose career was dogged by corruption allegations, was an albatross hanging around my neck. So now all of a sudden, he's an albatross. He a problem for her now. She goes on to say this: his career is over. I will be alive and kicking for the next 40 years. I do not owe him a thing. If there is corruption, it will be prosecuted. Everybody hear this? Among the issues that followed Harris from her time with Brown was the allegation of cronyism in his appointment of her and two well-paying posts. Yes, I may have influenced her career by appointing her to 2 state commissions when I was Assembly Speaker. So again, her relationship with Willie Brown was to elevate her political career. So he appointed her to 2 positions. Brown appointed Harris to the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board and then to the Medical Assistance Commission, positions that paid her more than $400,000 over 5 years. Brown also gave Harris a BMW. And I certainly helped her with her first race for district attorney in San Francisco. You hear all this? I have also helped the careers, get this, folks, of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Gavin Newsom, Senator Dianne Feinstein, and a host of other politicians. Well, I sincerely hope Nancy and all the rest of them didn't have to sleep with Willie too. I hope not. The difference is that Harris is the only one who, after I helped her, sent word that I would be indicted if I so much as jaywalked while she was a DA. That's politics for you. Because Willie Brown was a black man, and Kamala Harris was known for indicting a lot of black people. Let's look at a couple more things that I think people just may not be familiar with. Shout out to Consortium for this. Kamala Harris' distinguished career of serving injustice. And some of these I've already talked about, so I want to highlight certain ones. This is from Marjorie Cohn from Consortium News. So it was originally published 2019, and then this was posted again under Sheer Post. So we want to go to, I talked about that one before. There's two of them here that I want to highlight. I think it's this one. This part right here. Harris opposed investigations of police shootings. These cases are not isolated examples of Harris' less than progressive record as a prosecutor. Time after time, when progressives urged her to embrace criminal justice reforms as a district attorney and then the state attorneys general, Ms. Harris opposed them or stayed silent. Now, for all the people like Roland Martin that were kind of yelling at people on Twitter the other day and telling Black people to get in line and support Kamala Harris, I say this again, Kamala Harris has not been a friend to the Black community. So why should Black voters have to get in line to support her? She was against criminal justice reforms. You know how many lives she ruined, how many Black lives she ruined? And I'm not talking about Black people that have money. I'm talking about working class Black people. So once again, this is another example that showed you that Kamala Harris was not a friend to the working class, the people who didn't have the money to pay bail and get out. It goes on to say here, most troubling, Ms. Harris fought tooth and nail to uphold wrongful convictions that had been secured through official misconduct that included evidence tampering, false testimony, and the suppression of crucial information by prosecutors. See, these are the type of things like when people say, what is, Kamala Harris, that she would, destroy Trump in a debate because Trump is a felon, right? If it were me and I were debating Kamala Harris, all I have to do is pull up her record. That's all I have to do. And it goes on to say here, after a federal judge ruled in 2014 that California's death penalty system had become so dysfunctional, it violated the 8th Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment, Harris appealed the decision. As a result, California's death penalty was upheld and remains in place today. Now, that's supposed to be a right-wing position, right? So for the people who called her progressive, how is that progressive? It's not. Harris refused DNA testing that could exonerate Kevin Cooper, a likely innocent man on death row, and she opposed statewide body-worn police cams. Now think about the story I just told you about Sonya Massey and the body cams. Kamala Harris opposed police officers wearing body cams. Like I said, she's always been a friend to the police, not to the people. But definitely not the Black people. She has no attachment to the Black community. And don't come at me and say, oh, well, she was an AKA. Yeah, in college, she was an AKA. And there have been times, and I've been in college, there have been a number of people that have been in Black sororities and fraternities that were not Black. When I was in high school, there was a white girl that was a Zeta. There was a white guy that was an Alpha. So let's stop with all that. Just because she was in a Black sorority doesn't mean she had that connection to the Black community. She doesn't. Let's go on. Harris favored criminalizing truancy, raising cash bail fees, and keeping prisoners locked up for cheap labor. Again, here's another labor issue with Kamala Harris. She also supported arresting undocumented juveniles to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is ICE. Covering for corrupt police lab technicians and blocking gender confirmation surgery for a transgender prisoner. A U.S. District Court judge concluded that withholding the surgery constituted cruel and unusual punishment in violation of the 8th Amendment. Many of Harris's prosecutorial actions disproportionately hurt people of color. And if you go even further there, mainly Black people. But Roland Martin will tell you Black people get in line and come support this woman, boo. Then there was this conversation with the griot. Oh, how can one forget? This conversation here with the griot, where Kamala Harris was asked about reparations. Listen to this.
One of the questions that the Black community has is, Senator Harris, if you are elected president, what would be your agenda for the Black community?
Right.
We know that
Right.
Black Americans are arrested at higher rates for
That's
marijuana.
right.
We're denied mortgages when we loans
exactly
for
right.
mortgages. There's a
That's
wealth
right.
disparity. So how do you
That's
help the
right.
Black community from
That's
the White
right.
House?
That's right. Well, the first step is to understand that the needs of Black folks are the needs of everyone, and the needs of everyone are the needs of Black folks. It is also equally important to understand that this is a country that had over 200 years of slavery, had Jim Crow, had legalized segregation and discrimination, and now de facto segregation and discrimination. And so while our needs are like everyone else's in terms of we want our babies to be born healthy and live a happy and productive life, we care about issues of climate change, we care about issues of national security. We also know that when you look at disparities around wealth, around home ownership, around education, around who is stopped, arrested, and incarcerated in this country, there are huge disparities based on race. And that
Okay. So this is a kicker, because she admits right here that there are those disparities based on race. She just gave you a number of examples. She admits all of that. One thing I disagree with when she said the needs are the same, the needs are not the same. You can tell that by the healthcare system, where Black women are dying during childbirth at a completely disproportional rate compared to other women in this country. So the needs are not necessarily the same. But she admits it's disproportionately unfair, unequal. Now listen to the rest of this.
that has to be dealt with. So part of my proposal in terms of the agenda, specifically for Black folks, is about what we need to do, for example, around maternal mortality. I have actually sponsored a bill and intend, as President of the United States, to make sure it is passed around recognizing that Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in childbirth. And when you study the issue, you know that it is not about the education level of somebody, it is not about their socioeconomic level, it is literally about their race. Remember what happened to Serena. It is literally about racial bias in the medical health professions.
Mm-hmm. But she just told you the needs are the same. So you see what I'm saying? Do you see what's happening here? The needs are not the same, right? Now she says she has a bill to make sure that you recognize that there's disparity between for Black women that are, pregnant. What the fuck does recognize do? What you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? Recognize. I recognize that we have inflation. What are you gonna do about it? What are they gonna do about it? You recognize that not everybody in this country has health insurance. You recognize that some people are underinsured. What are they going to do about it? What do you mean you make a bill to recognize? What? Okay, let's go on.
That cause people to not take Black women seriously when they walk into the door of that hospital or that emergency room in terms of how they talk about what they need. The agenda includes HBCUs, for example. I am a proud graduate of Howard University. I know that our HBCUs have raised and helped raise generations of leaders in this country, and do it in a very special way that is about nurturing and about creating high standards and challenging young people to be their best, not giving them any excuse, but giving them all kinds of support. So we need to do more. Yeah, I'm right now working on, and actually got it out of the Senate, and the House passed it around giving more money to HBCUs around their historic landmarks. But there's more to be done around creating incentives for more young people to go into the STEM professions through HBCUs. There is what we need to do around the point that you were raising about the economic disparities. I have a proposal that will be my first order of business when elected president, that is about lifting up middle-class working families. And what I'm proposing specifically is that families that are making $100,000 or less would get a tax credit that they would receive it up to $500 a month. This proposal, economists across the board have said, would be the most significant middle-class tax cut for American families and generations, and it would lift up 60% of Black families out of poverty.
Now, does everybody see what she just did? Because this is a trick that a lot of Democrat politicians do when they're asked about reparations. You start off talking about what the Black community needs, particularly those that are descendants of slavery. She's not, by the way, she's not. You start off talking about that, and then all of a sudden you switch it to lifting up all these other people. Now all of a sudden it's the Lift Act, where we lift up everybody. And I'm not against lifting up everybody. But the question is, what are you going to do for the Black community? Let's continue, folks.
So it does touch Black families.
Oh, absolutely. Directly.
About the middle class.
Directly. Because when you look at the proportionality of where Black families are, you see it in terms of housing and home ownership, where white families, something, I'm going to get this generally right, but something around 70% of white families own their homes versus somewhere around 40% for Black families.
Yeah.
So you don't have to look very hard to see that disparities exist. But you also don't have to look very hard to see this, that when we're talking about families, regardless of their color,
here we
they have
go.
an equal desire to work hard, to love their children, and allow them to have a pathway and an equal pathway to success. Black mothers, white mothers of whatever race, wake up in the middle of the night worrying about their children and their health and their well-being, and we need to address that. But I will say there's another issue that we need to address that's specific to Black families, and that is this. We cannot have a society where a father or a mother, by the time their son turns about 12 years old, has to sit down and have the talk with him about how he will be stopped or chased or arrested or even killed because of the color of his skin. And
she was the cop. She was the cop. Everybody understand this? Okay.
So how do you intend to change that from the White House? How would you change policy around that?
Part of it is that the president makes a decision about who's going to run the United States Department of Justice. Currently, under this administration, they have shut down the pattern and practice investigations that involve investigating police departments that have a pattern and practice of discrimination. Those need to be reopened and revived with vigor, because no American should want that a police department that has a history and a pattern and practice of discrimination should be able to get away with that without consequence and accountability. Another issue is what happens through the Department of Justice around consent decrees, which are basically a requirement that police departments that have a history of that kind of behavior, they're under a court order for supervision. This Department of Justice has essentially shut those down.
Right.
First order of business with me would be to revive those.
Okay, now hold on to that there for just a second, because I want to show you another question that's a part of that interview about reparations in particular. Now, you just heard all her say all of that about the disparity and all that jazz. But when she is pushed back on about reparations, this is what she says.
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right? So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right?
But this is who Roland Martin is telling Black people to get behind, right? And she made it very clear to you back then, she was not going to do something that would only benefit the Black community, even though she just explained to you all those disparities. Now, I did a little bit of math, and I want to show you why this is particularly important when we talk about the wealth gap, and we'll get back to the other stuff about crazy Kamala. Now, this is from the Urban Org. Listen to this. Wealth gaps by race and ethnicity are large, right? So I just wanted to show you this graph so you'll know where I got my numbers from when I show you the next picture. Okay, so it shows you again, you have Asian Americans up here, you have white Americans next, and then Hispanic Americans, and then you have Black Americans here at the bottom. The wealth gap that we have by race and ethnicity. And yes, it is significantly large. You can see that on the chat. Now, by Kamala Harris standards, and Bernie Sanders had this too, and this is something I disagreed with when I supported Bernie's campaign. By Kamala Harris standards, come back, we'll bring it back in. She believes that if you lift up everyone, just give it to everybody, and then it'll all be equal. And that way you're lifting up everyone. So here's what I believe. I believe in the universal policies. I think everyone should have health care. I think everyone should have a decent education in this country. I believe in all of that. I believe in lifting up the people. However, there is a difference between equality and equity, and I want to show you what that looks like. Now, those numbers, I pulled them from that Urban Org report about wealth in this country based on race. And I want to show you what happens when you do what Kamala said. Just give everybody the same thing and lift up. So I put the numbers here. For Asian Americans, according to that report, the average family wealth here was over 1.8 million. For white Americans, over 1.3 million. For Hispanic Americans, over 227,000. For Black Americans, over 211,000, right? Okay, so we can see the disparities there. Now, I would have gone further than Kamala. Kamala's like, we're going to give them some tax breaks and that's going to help the middle class. Nah, bruh. I was just like, what would happen if we just gave everybody $10,000 a year, sort of like a UBI, right? We just gave everybody $10,000. It said, just have at it. There's extra $10K in your pocket. You could dish it out by the months, whatever. So I went further. And I want to show you the difference between equality and equity. Equally, I gave everybody $10,000. However, when you do the math, you will see that the equity is not there. Even though I gave everyone $10,000, if you notice, now the Asian American average family wealth is 1.819 million. For white Americans, 1.371 million. So everybody's getting that 10,000 increase. Hispanic Americans, over 237,000 now. And Black Americans, over 221,000 now. If you'll notice, I have the total for Black American family wealth in red. And there's a reason why I did that. Because what it shows you is that when you give everybody the equal amount, that same amount for everybody, that does not close the racial wealth gap. Because as you can see, Black Americans are still at the bottom. Even though I gave them $10,000, just like I gave $10,000 to Asian Americans, white Americans, and Hispanic Americans. But Black American families are still going to be at the bottom. Does everybody understand why this is an issue? So we are not to say you can't do any type of universal policies. I support them. But when Kamala Harris talks about this disproportion between different groups in the United States based on race because everyone did not get an equal footing, she's right about that. But she's not trying to close the racial wealth gap. So in short, Kamala Harris may agree that there should be some type of repair, but Kamala Harris does not agree with implementing cash reparations for descendants of slavery in this country. There is no way that Black families we'll say descendant of slavery, there's no way that they are going to catch up to white families or Asian families just because you gave everybody $10,000. And this, this had to grow on me. I had to grow up and learn. Because when Bernie was running, I said, yeah, give everybody health care and everybody should be all the same. And, I had to educate myself about this. When you do the math, you will see it's not equitable. So it's not enough to have equality. You also need equity. This is what people like Kamala Harris don't want to acknowledge. This is what Bernie Sanders didn't want to acknowledge. They don't want to lift up Black people enough to put us on the same level as white people economically. That's what it is, God damn it. And they don't want to do it because they're afraid they're going to get pushback from their white base. Kamala knows this. Let's keep it real. And she is not a descendant of slavery. However, she has no problem wanting to do something for other groups. You see, because here's Kamala Harris at an AIPAC event. Listen to this.
Our defense relationship is critical to both nations, which is why I support the United States' commitment to provide Israel with $38 billion in military assistance over the next decade. Our defense relationship is critical to both nations, which is why I support the United States' commitment to provide Israel with $38 billion in military assistance over the next decade.
So, and this isn't the only thing. Do you think Kamala Harris would get up on stage? You think Kamala Harris in an interview would say that Holocaust survivors should give their reparations back? Where was that same push to let's lift up everybody when Japanese Americans that were part of the internment camps received cash reparations, but descendants of slaves? Where was that same push? Where were all those same people that's like, let's just give it to everybody? Where was that? Where was it, people? Tell me, let me know. Huh? Let me know. And this is one of the problems that I have with politicians like her. And it's not just her. Richie Torres is the same way. All of these politicians that may look like Black Americans, but are actually not, they get out there and they will push harder for another group. But when it comes to Black Americans, it's all of a sudden we can't really do anything. Nothing that's just for them. But you can do it for other groups. She not the only one. Like I said before, Richie Torres, you add him to that equation too, damn it. James Clyburn, I support HB 140. That bill doesn't give out cash reparations to descendants of slavery. You come ask him about reparations and he yells at you and snaps in your damn face. But if you come to him and you say, would you support giving some extra support for Holocaust survivors? He smiles and says, no problem. People need to talk about this. And you can point to this as questionable as well. One of the potential VP picks that Kamala Harris is entertaining, Governor Josh Shapiro. This guy supported a bipartisan bill that would block colleges and universities from receiving state funding if they boycott or make divestments from Israel. That's one of the guys she's considering as running mate. Everybody see this? Okay. This is why stop. That all the people who coming up with all this defense for Kamala, stop. Should be no different than Joe Biden with this Israel policy. And that's the other thing. I have noticed quite a number of people all of a sudden that were pro-Palestinian, that were for Palestinian liberation, that were out in the streets calling Joe Genocide Joe. All of a sudden, these people are like, yeah, Kamala, I can get on board with that. That would be so much better. Really? As if Kamala Harris isn't the same cloth. As if Kamala Harris isn't doing what Abby Martin is calling out here. Biden leaves office a disgraced war criminal, but let's make no illusions about where Kamala stands on Israel. Regular AIPAC speaker compared Selma and the U.S. civil rights struggle to her pro-Israel activism, called BDS anti-Semitic, co-sponsored resolution against Obama in support of illegal settlements. Former campaign director says her support for Israel is central to who she is. Hosted White House events promoting Israel's atrocity propaganda about October 7th. Yes, she's been spreading that lie about the Hamas essay. After calling for immediate ceasefire in March, clarified she meant Biden's temporary pause. Biden officials say there's no dispute on policy between Biden and Harris on Gaza. So the young people, we got to have a conversation because there seems to be some type of confusion here. And it is very clear. Some of y'all have done your research on Kamala Harris. This woman's policy when it comes to Israel is no different. She is pro-Israel. She is not in support of this so-called Palestinian liberation that you want to try to achieve and accomplish. And as a matter of fact, when you look at both of them, both Trump and Kamala are AIPAC shills. Both of them. If you support, and this is why I said, if you support Palestinian liberation, you will not get it from them. You won't. Look at the numbers, folks. Kamala Harris has taken over $5 million from AIPAC. That they don't hand out that kind of cash for you to be against Israel. Donald Trump, over $1 million from AIPAC. These people are AIPAC shills. Now, that's one thing that Kamala has in common with Donald Trump. Pro-Israel, AIPAC. And if you think that Kamala Harris is going to sit up here and push back on Netanyahu and not give him something that he wants, you are sadly mistaken. Kamala Harris will have that meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, and I bet you he'll leave this country with some more damn money. So that tells me the American people have not truly woken up like I thought that they had. Because somehow they think that Kamala's different when it comes to Israel, and she's not. One other thing they have in common. Trump and Kamala are also pro-police. So for all of you that oppose the cop cities that are being built, you probably shouldn't be supporting Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. Now, I said I just gave you two similarities of Trump and Kamala. If you have more, drop below. Eric said both are tools of the billionaire class. Roger said how much time you got. I don't know if he said anything. Yes. The Steve Mnuchin connection. Both in pocket with big money interests. Both have no intention of extending TRICARE to the rest of the population. Canceling federal contracts with companies who engage in union busting. Neither will raise the minimum wage to a living wage, matching the cost of living and pegging it down to the cost of living. I doubt neither of them would bring down these rents. The Steve Mnuchin one is a big one with Kamala Harris. There was another one from Colin, if I can find it again. Did I pass Colin? He changed his picture. I'm sorry. There it is. No reparations. This is what I'm trying to tell you guys. These people aren't as different as you think that they are, especially when it comes to the establishment and the ruling class. Now, you got Tulsi Gabbard out here, and she out here calling out Kamala Harris again, calling out her record. And I got a lot of criticism of Tulsi Gabbard because I think she's just an opportunist herself. It just is what it is. But she's correct about Kamala's record. So here we go again. It's Tulsi and Kamala round two.
The fact that they're touting President Joe Biden making this decision as doing what's best for the country, it's just hypocrisy, given how many of them, as you mentioned, have been saying for days that he should step down as the Democratic nominee. I think the thing here to focus on, Jesse, is all of these different calls and questions come up about what happens next, whether Joe Biden is, actually resigns or he doesn't. We just got to remember nothing's going to change. If Kamala Harris is the nominee or some other Democrat is the nominee, nothing else is going to change. Joe Biden has been the figurehead for people behind the scenes who have been calling the shots. The same will happen if Kamala Harris is elected president or other Democrats. The fact is we've got unelected power elite in Washington coming from the military industrial complex, national security state, working with their friends in the big industrial propaganda media They all just want to stay in power. So they don't really actually care at all about Joe Biden. No matter how many crocodile tears they shed, they're going to look for the best horse that they think will help them win and back that person.
So the thing is, again, there are things that she said there that's true, but at the same time, that could also be applied to the Republican Party as well. They're all in bed with the billionaire class and the establishment. They're not really running things either. Now we go and flip to some of these polls. This recent Quinnipiac poll, this was released the 22nd, so that was yesterday. We're going to dive down to the young voters. This is what I want people to see. Because this is the one where I was like, oh, snap. And I don't know why their thing is so. Here we go, right here. Is this the one? 18 to 34-year-olds. But I need the one with Harris. Sorry, guys. Okay, here we go. We're getting to the Harris part. Okay. According to the Quinnipiac poll, we're going to look at a couple of polls. This Quinnipiac poll that was posted yesterday, when it comes to the youth vote, 18 to 34, Kamala Harris has 39% and Trump has 58%. That's the Quinnipiac poll. So all these polls have different results. So just FYI. So that was that one, 18 to 34. Now we're going to move forward to the YouGov poll. Now, the YouGov poll says among young voters 18 to 29. So there is an age difference here. The Quinnipiac poll is 18 to 34. This one's 18 to 29. This poll shows Kamala Harris at 58% and Donald Trump at 33% with young voters. So we're going to have to wait to see a couple more polls later on, because like I said, these are two different polls that have very different results. So there's that. But the YouGov poll is showing that she's seeing an increase with the younger people, at least as of today. And then there is this poll. Now, this is by Reuters. Harris leads Trump 44% to 42% in the U.S. presidential race. So this is a new poll that was released today. And so now they're showing that she is beating Donald Trump. I don't want to bring this back up here. Sorry. She's beating Donald Trump by 2 points. Joe Biden was not. So she has moved up in the polls. She's doing better. She's polling better than Joe Biden so far. We will continue to watch the polls. Now, remember, this is the popular vote. This is the national vote. I'm waiting to see the swing state votes, because that is ultimately what determines who wins the election, is who is going to win those swing states. That's what it comes down to. So when those are released, then I'll tell you about those. But right now, Kamala Harris is now beating Donald Trump in the polls. Now, of course, I get it. They didn't poll everybody. I know you guys are going to tell me this. They only poll people certain ages. Totally get that and understand. But I still got to report this. Still got to report this. So, and sometimes, again, that's not uncommon with a new announcement that has just happened, right? Now, the betting odds on Polymarket, this is interesting. Now, these are betting odds, okay? This is not a poll. The betting odds on Polymarket has Trump at 63% and Kamala Harris at 36%. Now, one thing I do want to remind everyone of, if we want to go back in time, let's all remember the poll said that Hillary Clinton was beating Donald Trump. And I think where a lot of people got lost is that, again, that is the popular vote. That's not the Electoral College vote, which is supposed to follow the popular vote, but whatever. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You don't really know. So there's all that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the swing states. So I will need to check and see how she is performing in those swing states now that she is determined that she is the nominee and not Joe Biden. But one thing I hope you've gathered from this conversation is that Kamala Harris is not progressive. She's pro-police. She's pro-Israel. So I don't know what people think that they're going to get from her that they didn't already have with Joe Biden. But you're looking at a female Barack Obama. And I feel it all over again. I see all this energy and everyone's like, we're cheered up. We're so excited. Oh my God. Oh my God. I saw it with Barack Obama. And then I saw a lot of disappointment. Let's look at that poll, Eric. Speaking of polls, let's look at this poll. This poll, will Kamala beat Trump? We have 3,567 votes. 18% say yes, 66% say no, and 16% say I have no idea. But the majority of you are saying no. That is interesting. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will have to just wait and see. We are going to do call-in tonight. I'm going to take a very quick break. I'll come back. We'll start the call-in room. You can call in and let me know how you feel about all of this mess. All right. Eric's going to come in for a second. I think we have chats, Eric.
Sure. Yes, we do. A whole bunch of super chats. All right. This is the part of the show where we give Sabrina a short break before we transfer over into what was still kind of call in, but is now actually our, I guess, officially a Zoom hangout. While Sabby's on her break, she's going to be setting up that link, and then that'll be posted in the chat, and we'll give you the link, and we can all hope you all jump in. The cameras are optional; they have camera on and off. But we hopefully have a lot of people speaking, get a nice big speakers queue, have a good conversation. So I encourage everyone to jump onto the Zoom room when we give you the link and check it out and participate. Now, let's see what we got for some of these chats. Thanks for the super chat, David in New York City. Kamala took $5.4 million from AIPAC. Kamala supports the genocide. Wake up. Why must we accept this duopoly? Americans are being gaslit yet again. Yeah, I certainly don't argue that. And I'm sorry, he's getting distracted by the chat. Yeah, well, one of the things is with all this chaos, one of the things I wanted to say is with all this chaos going around and Trump and Kamala, who are both terrible, and most people seem to view them as terrible, that this does potentially have a real opening for a third-party candidate, and for a real third-party candidate, not like an RFK who's just a fake Democrat or a fake independent, a real Democrat, but a real independent candidate. And I recommend for everyone is to figure out, what are your demands, what are the things you're looking for in a candidate, and see which candidate meets those. And ideally a non-duopoly candidate, because any member of the duopoly is fake and corrupt. But find, a candidate who meets your demands and put your full support behind them. And something big could happen because there are so many people who are dissatisfied with the duopoly. All right, Edwin Rodriguez became a YouTube member. Welcome aboard. Good to see you. Thanks for the super chat, Sir Bikes a Lot Day. Haha, BLM really thinks that their voice matters. Let me laugh harder. And ha ha ha. I can't do that many ha's on a super chat, but we appreciate it, Sir Bikes a Lot. And thank you, Norjan. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but Black Lives and Black Voices Matter, period. Thanks for that chat. And thank you, Baby Ethernet, for this super chat. Kamala is sidelining poor Black people. Goofy. And also for this one, Kamala, the Sesame Street campaign, so delusional. And thank you, Arthur Fletcher, for gifting 5 Sabby Sabs memberships. Thanks for this one, Luigi Superfly. Sabby is cooking Kamala and the Blue MAGA crazies. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes people seem to get confused when Sabby's laying these things out and seem to get the impression that like she's pro-Trump or has some love or affinity for Trump. And I think if you listen to her for more than 10 minutes, you'll get it that she hates the Republicans as much as she hates the Democrats, and like really any reasonable person should at this point. Thanks for this super chat, Kushrinada. Sorry, I'm bad at these pronunciations. Kamala can't debate to save her life. She won't improve. A lawyer that doesn't like to read or study, Trump is going to eat her alive. Yeah, I mean, I am impressed. I put this in the chat earlier at really how bad Kamala is at this politicking thing that you would think she would have gotten better at by now. Thanks for this one, Felina Farley. Green Party Black Caucus updating our reparations plan for approval at convention. Reparations and Black agenda are interconnected, but are two subsections. All right, well, that'll be something to look forward to, and how the Green Party convention plays out, and of course Stein's Jill Stein and the Stein campaign. And if you're looking for a strong reparations platform, I don't think you'd find a stronger one than what's in the Stein campaign at this point. Thank you for the super sticker, Regine Jolie. And thanks for the super chat, Willis. Kamala Harris, fake black woman girl after trash. Thanks for that. Thanks for this one, Michael. Shapiro never trialed cops as attorney general. Thanks for that. And thank you, Jay Tolbert. Trump being pro-police explains why he donated money to Kamala's attorney general campaign. Of course, she's not going to mention this ever. Yep. And it's that whole thing of, they're really all the same when, they're all serving the billionaires, and that's what we need to get away from. Thank you, Unemployed Scholar. Can Indians, Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans in the U.S. be put into their own racial category and not be put in the same categories as Filipinos and Pacific Islanders, Indians in high political office? And thank you for the super sticker, Jasmine Harrell. And thanks for this, Frank Johnson. She is trying to Sarah Palin us, yes. And thanks. Thank you for the super chat, Sir Bikes a Lot Day. Kim Iverson did a radar on Gabbard. She's one of these people that was selected by the billionaires to get into power. Yeah, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard has kind of been all over the place, and definitely doesn't seem like someone you can trust at this point. Yeah, we had some of these out on the rock fins. Let me see if I can bring that up. We have a busy night here for chats. Here's some rockfin. I think that's got us. All right, let's show that one. Thanks for the tipped comment on Rockfin. Hemkar. Google says abused by the badge. A Washington Post investigation found hundreds of law enforcement officers in the United States have sexually exploited kids. Many avoid prison time. And thanks also for this comment. Hempcar. There's a list of 85,000 cops with records. And thank you for this tip comment on Rockfin. Roger Meadows. He's giving us an Twitter X link. Peep this X post Be Easy sent me. Look at what she has done with her reinstatement of the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Bureau, colonizing what was meant for us. Please show to the viewers, Sab, all other marginalized groups get policies specific for them. We are never included, and yet we must share what is meant for us with everyone else. And thank you for this, for the tip comment on Rockfin. I Rose, appreciate that. And Hempcar, thanks for this tip comment. Amazon just banned Caleb Maupin's book on Kamala Harris. Thank you for those. Let's see. Yeah, one. Oops, sorry, trying to get to the right window here. Here we go. Yeah, one of the things that I noticed that happened recently was this whole thing of this conversation around like political violence, and like all these leaders and they're posting things, political violence is unacceptable and whatnot, and it's just really curious how how they view that kind of violence versus what's happening in Gaza. And it's the same old thing, like when it affects them, then all of a sudden it's an emergency. It's this incredible danger. But, how many is it now? Thousands and thousands of kids getting killed in Gaza. That's kind of like, we'll work on it. But political violence, whoa. That's the emergency. Anyways, we are going to work on transitioning to the Zoom Hangout, where we hope to hear from everyone. And I mean that, everyone come in and speak.
Yes. It's nice to hear your voice. All right. So some people are already in the Zoom room. I'm trying to push my phone away so you guys don't hear it, but some people are already in the Zoom room. If you want to join and call in and talk about what we talked about tonight and all that jazz, the link is pinned to the top of the chat, the Zoom link. You just click on it and you're in there. And I think people are already in the room. Yeah. But I'll put the passcode here just in case you need it, but I don't think you will. 1 second. Oh, hold on 1 second. Can everyone mute themselves? Because I can hear myself on here. Thanks. Okay, sorry.
You can see people. I haven't gotten in yet. Never mind. When I get in,
I'm going to put this here just in case someone does have to enter the passcode. I don't think people usually do, but if you need to enter passcode, it's 958573. Boop, that'll put you right in. And yeah, but people are already in the room. People are waiting. If you want to speak, what you do is you raise your hand. So there is at the bottom of the screen, there's an option where it says reactions. You click on reactions, you raise your hand, and that's how we know that you want to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and get going. We're already in the room, the Zoom room. So just go ahead and join in if you're ready. And that's it.
This time it made me put in the passcode.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird because other people didn't have to do it. They're already in there.
Weird.
Or maybe they did have to do it. I don't know. I'll leave it there.
You want to see if you can make me co-host or host?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Can you make me? Does it have a co-host option now?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it does. So I made you a co-host.
All right. All right. I will see you all in the Zoom Hangout.
All right. Everyone mute themselves. We are heading out, ladies and gentlemen. You know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.